there's still somebody who's in that place and needs to analyze the way they're feeling. So when they read this, that poem, it's going to be for them. I might not be there anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why, I wrote the poems the way that I wrote them. I wrote poems from a man's perspective when he's fighting with his woman and his wife and what he wish she would say to him. You know what I mean? And how he wished she would speak to him. All he wants is respect in the argument. We can disagree, but respect me while we're disagreeing.
Right.
And we'll be good. And I think that's what happens with both men and women, right? They're so angry that they start disrespecting each other.
The Podical sound.
Podcast, you can't win. Talking a good game, you can't win. Topics never lame, you can't win. Win.
Watch your average Joseph. Marvelous.
It's ridiculously funny.
What's up, y'all? I'm Marvelous.
And I'm not your average Joseph.
And we are the Podical Sons. Let's start the show. Like, comment, subscribe, all the above, all streaming platforms possible.
Right.
Podical Sons Podcast.
We are here.
You can see these lovely faces on YouTube and stuff as well. And do not forget, do not forget, you are listening and watching the greatest podcast ever. So my chest. What is on my chest, you say? I don't know. Everybody wears their heroes. I wear mine. What do you think, Smooth? Let me hit the pose.
Striking resemblance of somebody I know.
Oh, okay. All right. We got a wonderful guest, an author and a friend, personal friend.
Awesome guest.
Tell him, let him know your name.
My name is Aubrey Clarke, otherwise known as Bree.
All right. And Aubrey is going to share some of his wisdom and his lovely books and extra endeavors that he's into today.
Got to write an author in the house today, folks.
Yeah, I just play an author in my head, so we'll get there someday. Let's get to the polls and let's see what's going on with the world. Okay, so first poll of the week is it better to be honest or guarded with new people? What do you got, Smooth?
Honest.
Honest?
Yeah.
How about you, Bree?
I think honest.
Honest? The poll said 64% said guarded.
64% said guarded.
Yeah, 36% said honest. Now, why would you guys say honest?
I like to let people know where I stand right off the bat.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you there because of circumstances and stuff now in your life? Were you always guarded at a time?
I was guarded at one point, and I think people mistook my character in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, I remember I had this example on the pod already. One time when I was working for Chrysler, and I had that team partner, team lead, sorry. And I would always be quiet and just, not trying to make no fuss or anything like that at work. So obviously, looking at my appearance, I look like somebody who they think they can intimidate. And so he took that upon himself to think that he could push that, right?
Right.
And I think if I was just me at the jump and let people know, because I'm a very standoffish person when I need to be. And if I had just let him know from the beginning, it would have never reached to that point.
Right.
After he passed this place, he did find out. And it never went there again. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If I had let him know from beginning, it would have never got to that point.
Do you believe that I'm a firm believer in, like, you have to teach people how to treat you.
Yes.
But do you believe that anything you could have done something different for him not to try to intimidate you from the beginning? So let's say, for example, if you wore like let's say a screw you t-shirt or something, do you think that will ward him off?
I think that not being so
friendly,
not trying to be so friendly, or not try to be so
Is that a weakness?
I think so. I think some people take it as, if you're trying to please me, how far will you go to try and please me? What buttons can I push? Since that I know that maybe, because he knew I was a new worker. I got 90 days before my probation, right? Usually those are the times when they take advantage of you. See what you're made. And sometimes this is even a test of character to see what you're made of.
True. What about you, Bree?
See, I believe honest but wise, right? And the reason I say that is because you have to have tact at the same time, right? If somebody is doing something and you say to yourself, okay, if I'm completely honest with how they're making feel, it's going to blow up into a big argument right now, and it does not benefit me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if it's not going to benefit anybody, then I wouldn't say that you would lie, but you just leave it alone, right? But I believe the honesty is the best policy. You know what I mean? And the reason why I think that is because then when you're not honest, it comes back to your character, right? And it gets thrown back at you later on. Well, you lied about this or you lied about that, right? So I think, like, I heard one of my clients once said to me is that he gives everybody 100% trust and it's up to them how they spend it.
I like that.
I like that, yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I think of 100% trust, you're not gonna, for instance, leave your maybe $10,000 in front of somebody you just met.
Right.
I'm not saying that kind of trust.
Right, yeah.
Right? But if you tell me something that's not necessarily gonna hurt me or harm me, okay, I trust what you say, but I'm still going to be cautious.
Yeah.
At the same time, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you that trust. And if you spend that trust, then now you're down to 80%. Then you're down to 70. Right? And then you're down to 50. Right? You know what I mean?
It might not be returned many back.
Exactly.
It's down to 50.
Right. We have friends in common who's broken our trust, who we've given trust, and now we wouldn't trust them around our family. Right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I think that's where it starts, right? But when you meet people, it's good to be honest with them. And if they don't like your honesty, then they're not somebody that should be in your circle.
I think some people can't handle, like, okay, let me say this. So I'm with you guys with the honesty aspect and stuff, right? But I think pertaining to those type of people, we don't, I'm generalizing. I feel like a lot of people don't know how to speak to people. So it's kind of like my brutal honesty might be too much for specific people, right? We live in a world full of soft language. We always talk about soft language, right? So I look at it stuff as where I might say something, and what I realize and stuff is that some of the things I say, it comes off to other people as passive aggressive, but I'm just trying to just kind of nail it in and bring it in. Like if I say something like, okay, it's your world, I just live in it, whatever. Because you've already have your mind set on you're gonna do something like that. They're upset the fact that I done said a phrase like that. So I'm like, but you're still gonna do what you want to do, no?
Right.
So why is the conflict now arise now? But they're like, well, you didn't have to say that. So I was like, well, okay, but I'm being honest because I was like, okay, go forward. Do I say live long and prosper?
Yeah.
Would you take that serious? Or if I shut up, you might say I'm not talking enough. So I'm like, the communication aspect and stuff, a lot of people, we get kind of lost in. The guarded folk, before you start, the guarded folk I've spoken to from this poll, they said, two people in particular, man and woman, they both said directly, you don't know who you can trust. And I said, is that from your background and your experiences with people and stuff? And they said, yes.
Right.
So if they've been honest before, they probably got their honesty shot down or hurt or destroyed.
Right.
Where they're looking like, you know what? I'm just going to draw a line in the sand and just be guarded until I get to know you to a point when I feel comfortable to be honest with you.
Right. So being honest takes skill. It's like being in sales, for instance. I'm a sales professional. In a sales professional, you learn to look at personality types. Some people are A-type personalities, right? And an A-type personality, you cannot come direct with them because they're alphas, and alphas are going to go at it, right? So you have to kind of bring yourself down in order to get your message across. So they feel that they're the one that's actually giving you the information.
Planting the seed.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So there's the skill to it, right? And then we all have different love languages. So you have to be careful in how you present, right? There's a scripture that says, soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. If you make people feel loved and that you care about them, you can almost tell them anything. But if they don't feel loved and appreciated by you, then if you say something that's sharp and piercing, they're going to come at you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the important thing, right? If you're vulnerable enough to let somebody know you care about them, right? then that person's going to more likely listen to what you have to say, even though they don't like it. They might get defensive a little bit, but they'll step back and they'll say, well, I know he checks for me. And I might not agree with what he's saying, but he cares
the
about
place
me.
it's coming from is good. Right.
Because, of course, it says, faithful are the words of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful.
Yeah.
Right? Cool. So you'll have a lot of people that'll smile in your face and, while they're stabbing you in your back.
Yeah.
But then you have those people that'll tell you straight things that you need to hear. You might not like it. You know what I mean? But they have your best interest in mind. And then you can go home and examine yourself and say, maybe something what they're saying might be true. Let me check. You know what I mean? Let me look at myself.
That takes a serene individual, right? Because I want to say to honestly be honest with oneself. That I don't say it comes as a rarity in today's cases and stuff, whatever. But I want to say some people are just wrong and strong. You can give them the facts and list out everything and stuff. Be like, no, you're wrong, and they're like, turn their nose up and stuff to it, right?
Right.
When then the real honesty about it would have been like, okay, you're wrong. You acknowledged you're wrong. First step is admitting, and then just nod your head, keep it pushing, and then just do better.
Then do better.
How many people can honestly say that though, right?
I think a lot of people, because of their insecurities, they're afraid to get hurt, and they're afraid to look like a punk. That's one of the biggest things that I find with people. They don't want to be punked, and they don't want to be hurt. I've come to a place in my life where I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to be hurt. I'm not afraid to look soft because within myself, I know I'm strong, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, and I think, even in my book, we'll get to that later, but, there's a lot of poetry about those things, right? Showing that vulnerability, right? And I believe that, love is one of the greatest gifts you can have.
Of course.
So I refuse to let anybody rob me of that. Yeah, I get hurt, but every time you get hurt, you add another layer. It doesn't have to be a wall, but you add another layer of toughness that what to expect next time, so it won't hurt you as much. It's almost like when you break a bone and it heals. It starts to heal stronger, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's wisdom. And it's also wise to know what your triggers are. You know what I mean? Because, again, the reason that some people are afraid to be honest, because somebody might say, for instance, somebody used to make fun of you. When I was young, and Drew will tell you, they used to make fun of my lips because I had thick lips, right? And, and I used to want my lips to be thinner, and I wanted my eyes to be lighter, and I wanted my hair to be straighter and my nose to be straighter, because growing up, when we were growing up in the 80s and 70s,
that was the
white was the image we saw everywhere, right? But
kids
it's
were brutal.
Right. By the time I hit high school, though, those were my greatest assets and best features, you know what I mean? That I fell in love with, right? As I tell the kids, I had this teacher in grade 5 named Miss Nemini at Vella. She was like one of the meanest teachers in the school. But for me, she was like a hero. I remember on picture day, she looked at my pictures one day and she goes, wow, you're going to be a model one day. And it didn't matter what anybody else had to say after Miss Nemini told me I was going to be a model. It's so funny. And as I got older, I actually achieved that goal at one point.
For you.
You know what I mean?
Good for you.
And it was funny. But after she told me I was going to be a model, it was like, nobody could tell me anything.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And Drew could attest.
I can attest.
When I was, when we were younger, it was like I just had confidence in myself that it didn't matter who.
Listen, Mark. The nickname was AC Sweets.
AC Sweets. Okay. Move over, Slater. We have AC Sweets in the building.
Right. But, and then when I started going to church, right, and I found out that I was wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God, there was nobody that could say anything to me. If you didn't like me,
you can't tell me nothing.
Right. It didn't matter whether you liked how I looked or not. I knew that in my heart I was a good person.
Not to cut you, but I like the fact that you've established that within yourself. Like, think about how many people and stuff that live out in this world,
right?
Say with the depression, or they feel like they're not good enough. Like, when was the last time you felt like you weren't good enough for something?
I can't even tell you.
Boom,
because
I like that.
You know why? And I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons, right? There's a scripture, and of course you're gonna see me go back to scriptures a lot, right? Because
you do what you do.
Because I think that a lot of wisdom right? Whether you believe in Jesus and all that stuff, in the scriptures, there's a ton of ancient wisdom and text in there, right?
Right.
One thing I know is that the heart of man is desperately wicked and deceitful above all things. And when it talks about your heart, it's talking about your emotions and your feelings. And those are going to lead you astray, right? So when those negative thoughts come into my mind or whatever, I'm like, you're a liar. I know that's not the truth, right?
Right.
And you can really start counting your blessings. When you feel alone and you have nobody, I'm like, what are you talking about? I could call my brother Drew. I could call my brother Andy. I could call my brother Sean. I could call, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have
Right,
all these
right.
people that I know. My dad would give his life for me and my mom. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
my aunts and my uncles. But even though you know that, the feelings will still come.
Right.
When those feelings come, you just have to remind yourself that it's just a feeling. You know? And I mean, yes, some people need medication. Some people,
Well, some people have a support,
Right.
love and support queen like that.
And I'll tell you something, and this is why I tell people faith is so important. When people say, oh, I'm not religious, I'm not spiritual, whatever. But having that spirituality and that belief
Gives us structure.
just gives you strength. You
Right.
don't worry about anything that's going to happen tomorrow. You know, if you think something bad's going to, you'll prepare,
Yeah.
right? But you're not worried because you know what? I've been through this before, but my life is not in my own hands. So when am I going to worry about something I have no control over?
Yeah.
You know, see, you know, and
was
that goes
just- I
back
was
to being
thinking the
honest
same
and
thing
being
this morning.
guarded, right?
Yeah.
Why am I worried about what this person is going to do or say? You know what I mean? They don't control my life
Right.
or what I believe about myself. I don't need to change myself to suit that person,
That's good.
Well said.
you know? So,
I like that. Guarded folks, we're gonna worry and pray for y'all. On to the next poll. The next poll of the week said, "Which do you believe in?" The news was one of the options. Scientific data, a next social media, and the last one was neither. And what do you think won, gentlemen?
neither.
Neither.
Yeah, neither. Neither.
Neither.
60%.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did so talk about it? What are you guys sitting on the neither side?
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do you believe in?
Well, here's the problem, right? The word science is so skewed all over the place now, right?
Right.
Right. Science is no longer based on facts. It seems like it's just all hypotheses these days.
I mean, that's a scientific
It is.
experiment.
It is
Yeah,
right. It's an
scientific
experiment.
method.
It's
Yeah.
an experiment,
Right.
but it's not a fact now. It's not a proven fact
No.
anymore, right? So it's almost like, you know, it's all these theories and saying, I don't think this is going to happen, but I don't know for sure, right?
Right.
So, you know, before they would do a series of tests and wait over a period of time to quantify it. But now nothing's quantified anymore. Everything's these surveys and, you know, these metrics that are so swayed. Like, you know, I always say to people, if we have different blood types and we can't take each other's blood, then how can we take the same medicine?
But you say that all the time. You say it all
Like,
the time.
it's not even any scientific sense to that.
Well, my thing and stuff is that, like, for, let's say, for example, like, you're giving up yourself to science and stuff to collecting data information and stuff, whatever. Genetics plays a hell of a factor.
100%.
But then a lot of times and stuff, whatever, let's say, and to the Caucasian community, they tend to offer themselves up a lot more than the Black community, because Black people, I want to say, a good portion of the culture doesn't believe no one to know their business, right? That plays a factor into, like, whatever pertaining to medications that they're using. The white people and stuff offer themselves up to be tested for these meds to see yay or nay if they work with their genetic line, but the Black people did not. So now when they're coming to now bringing these drugs and stuff like to the line, they work well with the Caucasians, doesn't work well with the Blacks because they didn't offer themselves up.
100%. Even within the Black community, there's genetic diversity as
Tons.
well too,
Yeah,
right?
go with
You know,
everything.
from one side of Africa to the other, the diversity, you know, to the Middle East.
Yeah.
There's so much diversity in us, you know what I mean? And I look at, like, you know, one of my baseline markers, right, for my kidneys, for instance, right? You know, when I look at it in a white person, it would say that I have renal failure, right? But then when I went historically and looked all the way back at my data, my numbers have not changed for over 20 years.
Good.
You know what I mean? And then when you speak to black doctors in the US or other black, they say, yeah, that's because within, you have to multiply the GFR factor or whatever, in black people because we're different,
Right.
in that. But, if I listened to the Caucasian doctor, I would have been on medication.
True.
Right.
I had done all these tests on my heart and whatever. My heart's in perfect condition. They're saying, oh, you know what I mean? Because in a Caucasian, those numbers are off. But in a black person, those numbers are right on point, completely healthy,
Would you recommend, let's say, a friend or family being black to go to a black doctor?
I would recommend not just any black doctor, but a black doctor that's open-minded and willing to listen to you about your body as well, too, right? And I think even a white doctor that's willing to listen to you about your body,
I think it's just compassion in general.
Like it's something that something happened to me the other day. I had my appendix out on Easter Sunday,
Okay.
right? And a year before, I was feeling like pain around my appendix and cramping in my stomach. And I go to one walk-in doctor, white doctor, and I'm telling him, I think it's my appendix. He's like, nah, if you're appendix, no, I don't think so. I think it's maybe gas or some
Without
pain
the
or whatever.
testing?
Yeah, without the testing, right? Without the testing. He
Yikes.
goes, no, because your appendix would be, it would be hurting even more and whatever. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I get cramps again in my stomach. Go to another doctor. They send me for some ultrasounds, but no, not really on my appendix or whatever. You know what I mean? And they're saying, no, it looks like everything is okay. Then now I'm in Jamaica in January and I'm having these crampings again. I'm like, nah, man, something's not right.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when I got back, I mean, they gave me some antibiotics and whatever there for traveler's diarrhea or whatever, right? But then when I got back around, I think it was like in April time, I started getting cramp and I felt pains here. And I said, I'm going to emergency. So I go to emergency, they do the CAT scan, and they say, yeah, your appendix is inflamed. And of course, they said, you can take it out or you can try antibiotics. So I tried antibiotics in the hospital for 3 days, and it didn't go away. So they gave me another session for 2 weeks. And you know what I mean? And it went down, but there was still some inflammation. So I opted to take it out myself, right?
Right.
But after I took it out, I'm saying, I need to get to the bottom of this. So I pushed my doctor to give me an allergy test. He didn't want to give me an allergy test. He said, you don't need to do a foot allergy test. It's not going to tell you anything.
You need a new doctor.
Right? But it was a new doctor I got because the other doctor never gave me one, right?
This is Ontario, baby.
Yeah.
Healthcare is free.
Yeah,
you
but
can
it's
have options and choices.
And that's another thing. It's very hard to find a family doctor.
You know what
today.
it is? It's a level of compassion.
Right.
That's one. Two, the doctors, I'm going to say graduation rate is different, but I look at it stuff as where not too many people are trying to be doctors, family physician wise, more than specialists, right? So I look at it stuff as where a lot of people, they tend to bump heads on where, because most of the doctors now that I've seen within like Ontario's landscape have gone from personal practices like standalone to walk-in clinics / places.
Right, 100%.
Because a lot of people want stuff like they don't really break their neck to go to the doctor. I know a guy. I work with a guy. I even feel sorry for the guy. The guy said he hasn't been a doctor in over 23 years, and he was proud of it. And I was like, you're a man of 50. This is a problem. Then he went to the doctor and stuff, whatever, and realized he has diabetes and this and some other stuff,
100%.
whatever. And he's like, out of sight, out of mind. If I don't know, then I'm good to go and stuff, whatever. I was like, bad way to looking at things and stuff, whatever, but whatever works for you.
It's one thing about me is what I do is I read the scientific studies. I'll go to the NIH website and I read
the scientific data.
The peer-reviewed studies. I'll go back and I'll read some of the peer-reviewed just to compare it, right? Then I go to the naturopath stuff and read the studies from the naturopaths side of things, right? So when I go and I'm talking to my doctor, I understand what those numbers say on my blood test. You know, I'm not going in there just
And
letting
let the
him
doctor
tell me
feed
anything,
you,
right?
yeah.
So I'm discussing, I'm bringing I'm saying, I noticed this number on my test and something is not, is not right, And I remember when I did that to my old doctor, he sent me to heart specialist right away when I was looking, because he was like, I missed this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. He was scared because months ago I did this, and after I saw him again, I brought it. It looked like he was scared in his, you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, I missed this. You know what I mean? But back to the whole appendix thing, right? So I did the allergy test. I found out I'm allergic to all nuts. I've been popping nuts like popcorns and snacks my entire life. And the funny thing is, I realized those times when I had the flare-ups is after I was eating nuts. You know what I mean? When I look back at it, and even when I was in Jamaica, I was still eating nuts for snacks while I had this stuff because I didn't know I was allergic to them.
Yeah.
And you know, and when I spoke to the surgeon, the specialist, after I had my appendix out, and I said to her, you know what? I'm allergic to nuts and stuff. And I've been eating a lot of stuff. And I think that's what caused the inflammation in my intestines. And of course, your appendix is a part of your intestine.
Right.
And you know, she said to me, she goes, oh, they have no evidence that any of that. They don't know why. They said they don't know why the appendix ever gets inflamed. They said it could be bacteria, it could be this, it could be, but they never really know why. We tested it and there was nothing. We didn't find anything. And I'm like thinking to myself, doesn't common sense tell you that if allergies create inflammation, and if you have chronic inflammation from what you're eating and it's going through your intestines, there's a very possible that that's what could cause it? And I'm like thinking to myself, just to dismiss it.
It's just the anaphylactic shock.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was what's going, right? And then later on, you know, they tell you your appendix is good for nothing. Later on, I did more research. And I found out that your appendix stores the extra gut microbiome, right? That's important for your immune system. Right?
I did not know
And I had
that.
no clue.
I did not know
And I
that.
did some more research, and it said that people who don't have appendix tend to live a shorter lifespan than people with an appendix. And I'm like, right.
It's the same with, you know, the kidney people when they give them their lifespan cuts
and I
too.
think right, and I think it gets back to the gut microbiome, because without healthy gut microbiome, your body, your immune system cannot function properly, right? So it's important that if you don't have an appendix, to make sure you're taking probiotics and even seeing a naturopath every now and then to just get your gut microbiome checked.
But I like it.
Right. But of course, these aren't things that normal doctors tell you. These aren't things that anybody will tell you unless you do the research, right? So when you ask that question about whether you believe in science or not, it's like, it's not that you don't believe in science. It's just that you have to go above and beyond with your own health and to do, you know, people say, don't do
who's
your own
supposed to
research.
do it for you? Yeah.
You got to do it for yourself.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying just go to social media and let social media be your doctor, but I'm talking the same papers that your doctor is supposed to be reading.
You can go read them too.
You have access to that data, right? You know what I mean?
But they don't though, and that's the thing. They get force
most
fed.
people don't, right?
They get force fed either what they see, like let's say on social media, like, okay, this is the prob. Like even Smooth and I, we were having a conversation and stuff about I think what the WAC 100 said something about Drake and put a cease and desist order out there for like the Super Bowl. Right. For like not like us to be played there and stuff for there. So cease and desist thing. And I said it to him, he said it to me, but we didn't say it with good faith. I'm like, I heard. I never looked in to go do research on it, neither did him. And then a few days later, WAC 100 came out to confirm, no, it's not true. But then think about the few days before, how many people took this as gospel. The comments, they ran this and typical bitch ass shit, this stuff. Of course, Drake would do a cease and desist order and all this for them. It's not true. But they don't care to look at anything.
I think we're all guilty of a little bit of that every now and then. We're not confirming for sure things. You know what I mean?
I slow my roll. That's why I look at like, if I don't know, I don't know until I see it. And it's similar to like your health situation, right? I don't take everything what you tell me face value because I don't know if you might have my best interest at heart. So I like to just tend to look at stuff for myself and to see if it works for me. But a lot of people want stuff to me like, yeah, I don't have time for that. If it doesn't work for you, I guess it doesn't work for me either.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's true. You know, I remember when they thought my kidneys, the GFR was high, right? They were trying to put me on blood pressure medication specialist, and I'm like, I'm not. I tried it, and I'm getting headaches. I'm like, I'm not taking this stuff. Did my own research again. When I started taking black seed oil, you know, TMG and Celtic salts, as well as some nettle leaf and burdock roots and stuff, my blood pressure is like perfect now. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And when I went back to the specialist and he saw my blood pressure, he's like, what are you haven't been taking the medication? I'm like, no. He goes, I guess you're doing something right. I guess you don't need to see me anymore. That's what he said. That's what he said. I guess you don't need to see me anymore. You know what I mean? But again, people, think about this. Long before there was artificial medication, people lived on this earth and lived healthy. right? All of a sudden, we forgot all about the natural herbs and the natural things that was created along with us to keep us in health, right? And I'm not here advocating for anybody to not take their medication, but I'm saying that there's alternatives that you can look into. You know, you can consult a naturopath and consult information. And again, we're all different. So what works for you may not work for me.
Right.
And the reality is, like, you'll see a lot of people talking about vegan and eating vegan and not eating meat. Some people need to eat meat. I'll tell you something. Anytime I went on a vegan or a vegetarian diet for a long period of time, my testosterone levels plummeted. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like myself anymore. And the minute I went back eating, red meat again, all of a sudden my testosterone levels shot right back up. My energy levels, everything about me. Like, I realized, even if I take iron supplements, if I eat all the stuff that they tell me, there's something in it that my body requires in order to function properly.
Right.
My blood type is, B positive, for instance. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I know, like, I don't eat it all the time. I monitor, but I know that I need to eat that in order to be in my ultimate health. And when I was in
you know what works for you.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So, there's all these diets and fads and people telling you that, oh, don't eat this. You must only drink coconut water or only do this. When I was drinking only coconut water, it shot my blood pressure, my blood sugar through the roof. You understand what I'm saying? You see? And because I'm the type of person that every 6 months I go get my blood work done, I know these things.
You know these things.
Most people don't know these things, right?
You don't go
and even when,
check that.
Right.
often.
And even when my doctor tells me I don't need to, I said, no, I want to do it anyway. Right? Because as you said, healthcare is free in Canada, right?
Right.
And I do it, and I go through my own numbers, and I eat according to what I see on my chart.
That's good.
And I change, right.
That's very good.
And I think that's important, what most people should be doing, right? And we don't take advantage of the system.
And like I said, back to my coworker and stuff, whatever. I was looking at stuff like, boss, these things are here for you to utilize, right? You don't want to play these penitentiary chances and stuff when you realize so many things could have been so preventable,
right?
But you chose not to do it and stuff, whatever. And then now you're in this I want to say momentary lament about, oh, my life is getting cut short, or I wish I had more time to do all of this,
right?
A lot of the decisions we make in the past and stuff that affect our future and stuff, short-term, long-term gain, right?
And it's interesting. A lot of the tests that you can't get done here, you can go across the border and get it done for $50, $80 at LabCorp. You know what I mean? Without a doctor's recognition, right? And I'm saying that,
yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
It's crazy because I have my ex, she went to Florida.
Okay.
Right? She went to Florida and stuff one day with our son. And she went to go do some tests and stuff like that. I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, it only cost me I think she said like $40-something for like this particular test, whatever. Cause she said here in Ontario, they're kind of like just dilly-dallying with pass you off to a specialist, pass you off to someone else that might give you. She's like, no, she just went. I was like, I'll be damned.
As long as you don't go to the hospitals.
Yeah.
Like the hospital, like for instance, when I had to do some tests in Florida, because I took off during the pandemic to Florida, right? Of course. And I did my heart, my echogram and all that kind of stuff. When I did it at a clinic, it cost me maybe, all the tests combined cost me $300 US. When I called the hospital about the test, they were telling me it came up to like $10,000.
Wow.
That was the difference. I was like, what? So
that is insane.
Think about it. $10,000
Canadian.
No,
US.
Right, to go in the hospital and do a simple echocardiogram and stuff in the hospital. That's the kind of rates. And then you go to the clinic down the road, $300.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
It's weird like that because I work in a pharmacy,
insane.
right? And like in the pharmacy and stuff, I want to say a retail pharmacy might sell the specific drug the same. And we'll say the cost might be $15. In a hospital setting and stuff, because they know institutes have so many money, grants, and all this type of stuff, that same thing might even be double or triple.
Right. It's
So it's a business.
Yeah, it's a business. Yep. But
I think people just forget.
They take advantage. Honestly, the hospital system, they take advantage of the people. It's crazy. But I don't know. I wonder here in Canada if doctors, the more tests they give you, if some of it they get charged for some of it or whatever. Because sometimes I ask for certain tests on a requisition, and they're like, "No, you don't need that." And I'm like, but it's covering all my health care. I want to know, and the doctor will say, no, you don't need that, and I'm like thinking to myself, are you going to be charged for it? Or is it come out of your pocket or maybe if you write 2 months? Like I wonder because why and you talk to so many people and you hear the same thing. My doctor didn't want to send me for that test, but why? What you ask yourself.
Ego plays a factor.
You really wonder why they don't want to send you for a test that you ask.
What I'm saying, ego plays a factor and stuff for that because the thing is stuff like, who are you? I'm the educated one. You're not that educated,
Right.
Or I'm the PhD. You're not the PharmD or PhD and stuff, whatever. Who are you to tell me how to do my job?
Right.
Could you imagine if I never pushed for that allergy test? I would be popping all kinds of nuts all now and still having inflammation and wondering, well, my appendix is gone. Why am I still having cramps?
Yeah.
That's why
The
you have
minute I stop eating nuts, no more intestinal cramps, nothing. Don't even have much gas or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The minute I stopped eating that, it was just like, wow. And I had because most people are allergic to nuts, they get anaphylactic shocks.
Right.
Right.
Me, instead, it was different. Like, I know I'm allergic to shrimp, and I love shrimp, but the only way I knew that is because when I used to eat shrimp, I'd get little boils in my mouth the minute after. And then I said maybe it was the spice, but then I went and ordered the same thing in calamari, and it never happened. And I got shrimp cocktail, and I'm like, oh, I'm allergic. But the ironic thing, on the allergy test, shrimp only came up a little bit, whereas nuts came up huge.
Mm.
But my physical reaction to shrimp is greater than what I was seeing with the nuts. But the nuts was internal.
Right.
You see?
That-
And I
yeah.
didn't, right. And I didn't know, right?
Right.
So, these are things, as we were talking about honesty, right? Most people would be afraid to be honest, on a podcast about these things about
Yeah.
health, right? Because
Zeus
they're
is on.
vulnerable.
Not here.
Not here,
Here,
right?
this is called Tuesday over here.
I think it's important for your own experience to let people know. You know what I mean? It's funny. Like during the pandemic, I went to the States and I took the T-cell test. Remember, only in the States you could get it. And it was a T-cell test to see if you had any T-cells against COVID.
Okay.
Right? Because if you had T-cell immunity against COVID, then you definitely didn't need a vaccine.
Right.
Because your body's already protecting yourself, And the first time, it's so funny. I went there to do the test, and then I ended up getting COVID the day after the test. Right? Or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's fun. But of course, me.
You probably got it from the people there.
No, but
The
ironic thing is that because I read and I'm into all this natural stuff, and I was looking at a lot of doctors that were using certain things in order to treat their COVID and stuff, and I had the Delta. And be honest with you, I used those things and I was fine. I had a little bit of a cough or whatever, but boom. You know what I mean? Then I went and I paid for the test again. Then, of course, it showed I had T-cell immunity, and then I had the antibodies,
Right.
Then the funny thing was, come wintertime, I was going to New York, and I took one of the thing tests, and then it said that I had maybe Omicron, right? Which I think was just a little common cold. I didn't really have much symptoms or anything.
That didn't last too long.
Yeah.
No,
Right?
That one didn't last long.
But the funny thing is I went and I did the T-cell test again. So my antibodies went from like 189 all the way up to like 9,000. And I know that the majority of people who took the vax or who got COVID have no idea how much antibodies they have because people didn't go do the blood work. They just assume that I took this thing and it's going to protect me.
No, people went neither. They don't care about
Right.
nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
Nothing.
So for me, you know what I mean? Like I'm definitely not like, what do you want to call it again? Anxious or whatever, or paranoid about any of this stuff.
Oh,
But
okay.
for me, I like to know. I'm my own scientific experiment.
Which
You
is
know what I
good.
mean when I
Yeah.
say that? Because now I know what to look for, and I know what I can use to stop, the cytokine storms in my own body. I know what my body responds to and what my body doesn't respond to. Not what a bunch of people in the group over there, maybe 1,000 people did some study and based on what they had, this is what we found. No, I know what works for me.
It depends. Yeah, true. It
know what
depends
I
and stuff. But the thing is, stuff is that you're one of the populace, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the thing is, stuff is that if I want to say you have people who have the control over, let's say, a control group,
Right.
and then you ones who don't,
Right.
right? Because I even look at stuff like a census. a census, whether people like it or not, that's scientific data.
Yeah.
Because these are the people, the individuals living in this community, emitting or giving the information off to this thing, whether it be like fact or fiction or valid or not. It's still them giving their collective and stuff. Now, if they're saying like, oh, they didn't reflect on us and stuff like that, then you weren't honest when you're giving the data.
I hear what you're saying. You see, I'm kind of biased when it comes to censuses and surveys and stuff, that I don't necessarily believe in them.
But you said neither, though, so you don't believe in neither.
No, and I'm going to tell you why I don't.
Go
I'm
ahead.
giving you real data why I don't, right? For instance, in the radio and TV, when they send out those surveys, right? They don't send...
Which surveys?
The radio service, see listeners.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
How many listeners are listening and
Okay.
stuff like that, right? They don't say, well, Toronto has 10% black community, so I'm going to make sure 10% of the surveys go out to black folks. You know, there's maybe 20% South Asian and whatever. They don't divide the surveys up evenly amongst the population, right?
Right.
So if it all goes to one group, Caucasian listeners, right, and Caucasian listeners tend to like classic rock more,
Right.
than, or, you know, CHRY, then those stations are always going to rank higher in the survey than any of the other stations, right? Because it's only it's only 2,000 people that they're surveying out of millions, and the survey is skewed towards that population because they're not making sure that the surveys are divided evenly amongst each group. Right, to see,
but not everybody in each group would answer though the same, and then that would even change the numbers and stuff.
Right. So what I'm trying to say,
that's what I'm saying. It's, you need a control group. We'll take 100 Caucasians, take 100 blacks, take this.
Right, and to represent the entire population, it needs to be a percentage of the population.
I don't think certain things can get.
But what I'm trying to say for the accurate number, right? Because you'll see, like in the polls, Hillary Clinton was supposed to win by a landslide. And Donald Trump won. See, this is why I look at a lot of these polls and surveys as exactly what they is. It's a metric, but nothing is, and they all say plus minus 5%. But, you know, I'm always skeptical of polls because what polls can actually do when you release them is bias people's opinions. So if you release a poll and says that this person is leading, and most people are followers, so people will say, oh, that person's leading. So since most people believe in that person, I should believe in them too. You'll see a lot of the population are followers.
With the social media,
And this is how you can bias elections or bias any kind of thing just by releasing data early. Or, you know, you could put a politician up there with a fake audience behind it and tell them that, you could lie and say, you know, 10 million people are behind this politician. And people are like, whoa, that many people? I guarantee you, if I put out something, or they put out something that 100,000 people bought my book yesterday, you'd see everybody running to buy my book.
Of course.
Yeah.
But if you say only 2 people bought the book, people aren't going to say, well, it's good content. So, you know what I mean? I should go still check it out because people are followers.
Yeah, but the numbers and stuff for most places are anecdotal anyway. And you can only get so close to the mark with a small marginal group. With a major group, you can't.
They now have the ability, to be honest with you, through technology and cell phones and stuff, they have the ability to survey a much larger group when it comes to polls and stuff, just by using certain apps and things on the phones and stuff. You know what I mean?
The Podical Sons polls.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say. They have the ability to survey a lot.
But not everybody,
more.
that's what I'm saying. Who participates compared to who doesn't.
Right.
That plays a factor too, because it's kind of like we can have 500 people look at our polls, seen it, but only 300 will participate.
Right. I agree. But the more people you give access to it, right? Instead of having a company call 2,000 people to do a poll, right? If the polls are sent out, just like they do the Amber Alert, the polls are sent out, boom, to everybody's phones, like a political poll or whatever, right? You're going to get a lot more a percentage of people,
Obvious.
you know.
That's obvious.
Now, right, answering those questions for you, and then you'll have a more accurate, you know, thing of what's going on. Of course, especially with AI now being able to control so much.
So you don't trust nothing.
I'm not saying I don't trust it, but I'm just saying there's better ways of them necessarily doing it.
There is, but the thing is stuff is that
like,
you can't see. For me, I look at it stuff as that. Who do you expect to do that?
Who do I expect to do that? That would be
the particular company for that
It would be a polling. It would be whether there's a Gallup poll or a Nielsen poll or whatever the polling company is that they have. Right.
Right. So the company
is
will pay and stuff for say set amount of dollars to go set amount of things to get the data, I guess, to their liking, so to speak. Right.
Right.
Would you spend, let's say, if you're running a company and stuff to get everybody's polls, right? To get, I want to say, even pie charts and stuff, whatever. They tell you each poll or each data that they collect, you're gonna have to spend $100,000 for it.
Well,
for your company. Right. How much are you willing to spend to collect the information that might need for your company?
Here's something I'm gonna say, right? Just the same way that the government always puts these mandates in place for telecommunication companies and stuff. It's very easy for government to pass a law or whatever saying telecommunication companies must give access to the polling companies free of charge for that text to go out for the poll to be done. It's because just the same way that they force us to fill out to serve the census that comes to our house, right?
Right.
But it's a law that we have to fill it out when it comes to our house.
Yeah, and
they can
they're
easily
doing that through Canada Post.
Right.
Canada Post is the company that they use to issue that.
Right. And they could easily put something in place, a telecommunication, just like the Amber Alert goes out to all telecommunication.
Yeah, but that's
companies.
what I'm saying. Which company is supposed to be collecting for what?
But I'm saying
information?
but it's saying now with AI, it's not expensive for them to collect that data. If the telecommunication companies have to now allow like that app,
not everybody trusts AI like that to even participate.
But what I'm trying, I hear what you're saying. But AI won't be on the forefront. AI is on the back end to collect the data that the telecommunication company doesn't have to pay. The survey company doesn't have to pay a whole bunch of people to.
Regardless, and that's what I'm saying. Like even like for even the Podical Sun side,
right.
There's no money exchanged from that. But like I said, if you have 500 people still looking at it, there's still 300 people only participating. Right. So it's still choice of the people. It's not about 100%. Which company will put in the more money to get the more elite data.
Right. But what I'm trying to say, out of millions of people, you're gonna just have a higher percentage than just going after 2,000 to 3,000 people for a survey. That's all I'm saying.
You're still gonna have the people who choose not to,
but you're still gonna have a higher percentage, right? But I'm just saying there's a lot of things that are speculative that they call it, they make it seem like it's law. That you know what I mean? That's just all based on, again, educated guesses. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. A lot of things is educated, but they make it seem like this is law, and this is 100%, you know what I mean?
And that's for the people to do the research.
Right. But then again, they make people feel like dummies. Oh, you're doing your own research? Oh, you're one of those people. You know what I mean?
No, but they're always going to have polar opposites to all of this,
right?
Regardless.
Right.
And I think the thing is stuff is it's still up to the person. No one can tell you who are you.
100%.
But that's the thing. But if you don't understand self, you're always going to listen to others about you.
100%.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
So the thing is that everybody whoever's listening should just look at it and say whatever they say, their numbers don't work for me. Whatever their diet is, it doesn't work for me. I need to figure out what works for myself.
Right.
So it still goes back to like individual and self with that aspect.
Right. It's one of those things, I mean, like I could always take back the polls.
We'll hold that. Let's get to telling people about your book.
All right.
So let's talk.
Yes. So my book, In His Heart, is the newest one. It's a poetry book filled with love poems, relationship poems, and just poems about how men feel in general, right? Okay. Like I'm a very vulnerable person in that sense to release, some of my own experiences, but also some of the poems in here are the experiences of others as well too, that I know who've gone through heartache and heartbreak or even communication problems in their own relationships. Okay. And I think it's important, for men to feel okay to be able to express themselves. I mean, whether it's to their brothers, or to their woman, or to a family friend, or even to a therapist. I think a lot of people need therapy and avoid it and think that it'll make them feel weak. Again, I was fortunate enough, at the age of, I'd say 16, 17, to start going to a church where I had a lot of mothers and older fathers and brothers there that I felt comfortable. And there was a group of us that would get together and we would talk about what was going on
Would that
inside
be
of us.
considered your form of therapy back then?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what
Right.
I'm saying. My form of therapy, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't necessarily know
Yeah.
it was therapy, but we were just open and talking about what we go through. We call it testimony services or challenges, right?
Yeah,
So
testimonials.
and nobody would, judge you for that.
Right.
People would support you, you know what I mean, and build you up. So my group of brothers that I have, all of us, we don't feel any ways about talking about what's going on with us. Where I know that a lot of guys who didn't have that don't feel comfortable talking about
Right.
an issue with their other brothers because they feel that you're soft, bad,
Well,
about
I
that,
think a
right?
good portion of dudes and stuff, whatever, like men in general, like, I think the ideology of how a man's supposed to be is kind of structured in a lot of men. So it's kind of like sharing emotions or sharing feelings of what you're going through might be considered soft to a particular group or culture and stuff, right? So I think if you're coming from a culture or a world where it's okay to be vulnerable, and I come from a space and stuff where men don't share feelings, how would you get me to kind of like speak in your language, so to speak?
Right. And I guess that's where therapy comes in because men don't realize, especially in today's time, women are a lot different than they used to be, in our parents' time when women.
We all are, men and
right,
women.
Right. But what I mean by that is there was a certain role that women thought they had to play in the house and whatever. And if a man was like tough and didn't express, they just left it. That's just men. And they let it go. But I find that a lot of women today expect men to be expressive and to say how they're feeling. And now that women are a little more alpha in nature, they try to bring it out and it creates a lot of,
Right.
conflict.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're like, tell me how you're feeling. You know what I mean? Oh, you never talk to me. Oh, and they just, they get to the point where some women get to the point where it becomes almost like belittling the man. And then the man closes up even more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if women understand that if they could make a man feel comfortable in his vulnerability and make him feel like an alpha when he's vulnerable, that men would open up more.
I agree.
Instead of throwing it back at him, right? I find that you can be both. You can be alpha and be vulnerable at the same time.
How?
How?
Yeah.
What's your definition? Depends on what your definition of the alpha.
Well, because
You can-
if you're
you can-
talking about the alpha women, the alpha
alpha
women
man,
says-
I'm talking about a man. You can
Okay.
be alpha. You can be a leader. You can be strong, and you can express your feelings.
would that be considered alpha?
Yeah,
Or
that's
would
what I'm saying. Well, I would say an alpha is a leader, right? An
Mm.
alpha is a person who's a leader, who is, knows what he wants, but also being a part of an alpha is also being able to express how you feel. You don't have to be necessarily teary-eyed and crying all the time, but you can say, hey, what you did hurt me, and I didn't appreciate that.
Right.
Because
You know what I mean?
you have, okay, if we're talking about the archetypes, right?
Right.
Or I want to say that will fall in the line of sigmas and stuff as well, right? Or gammas. And with them, there is more of sharing, I guess, those kind of feeling wise, when the alpha and stuff on that chart is not so to the feeling aspect. So that's why I was trying to understand and stuff where you're saying it's alpha, because it sounds more sigma and gamma than it does alpha.
Well, I guess it almost depends on your definition, right? And I think some things need to be redefined. And
Ton
I
of
think,
things.
right, need to be redefined because for me, to everything under the sun, there's a time and a season, right?
Right.
There's a time to be like firm and strong, but there's a time for a man to be soft too and compassionate.
Time and
Right.
place
You know
for
what I
everything.
mean?
Yeah.
And I think, right, and a true alpha knows when to turn it on and turn it off. Right now, there's the type of guys who are just soft all the time and let people walk all over them. Right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about,
Well, they won't be considered alpha.
right? They wouldn't be considered an alpha at all, right? But for me, an alpha knows when his woman needs him to be a little softer with her. Needs to be able to express. You know what? I was going through this. I had a rough day at work. That thing really bothered me. It hurt me. Not that you always have to be tough all the time,
Right.
but it's how you deal with that. Now, do you curl up in a ball, Or do you say, you know what, went through that challenging time, but you know what, tomorrow I got this, you know?
And I think the alpha part of it is more so of not only that they're recognizing it, but it's on their behalf, they're doing it. Nobody's forcing them to do it.
Right.
So it's still in that sense.
Right.
It's still, I'm not vulnerable because you're making me vulnerable. I'm vulnerable because I want to be vulnerable to get whatever I
You made
can.
the choice.
out of
Right.
it. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, you know what I mean, to be able to express your feelings. A lot of people have been through trauma. Just as much as women have been abused sexually and physically, a lot of young men are embarrassed because they were abused,
Of course.
either by men or women growing
Right.
up, and they've never told anybody,
Right.
and they're suffering in silence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the way they are because they shut down in order to protect themselves. You know, right? And that's what a lot of people do. A lot of men have been hurt by their mothers, you know, the abandonment issues. Their mom was never there for them. So they get into a relationship, and the minute that their wife makes them feel neglected in any way, it triggers those abandonment issues. And they can't connect the two,
Right.
right?
Right.
They can't connect the fact that, you know what? My mom, I'm really mad at her because I'm mad at my mom still. And because men don't go for therapy and they don't talk to anyone, you know, their relationships tend not to work. And they're from one relationship to the next. And it's the same thing with women too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, without that counsel and looking at self and seeing what your vulnerable points are. You know, it's funny. I remember when I was younger, you know, and at one time when my parents had split up, you know, I didn't realize I was missing my mother the way I was missing her. And I had those abandonment issues, and I didn't know I had them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was dating a young girl, and I hurt her by kissing another girl who was able to give me what I needed at the time, because she kind of grew up in a similar family with me, whereas the other girl didn't.
Right.
You know, and it had nothing. The other girl was amazing. It had nothing to do with her. It was my abandonment issues and I didn't realize it until I had a breakdown. Maybe I was 18 about this time, and then by the time I was 21, and I really thought about what was going on, and I was in church, and I broke down on my youth pastor's shoulder, and I really understood what was going on with me. And then that day, I've never cheated on another girl in my life. Not been with one girl and kissed another girl, nothing.
No.
Because of the fact that I was healed at a young age and understood what my trigger was.
Right. Yeah.
That trigger never carried on into my
The
later
next
life.
relationships
Right.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes. You know what I mean?
I
And-
think that's good because you understand, like you said, you understood
Right.
the triggers, right? Again, it's sense of
right.
self.
And you have to be willing to look at self and admit. A lot of people aren't
That
willing.
is hard for a lot of people.
yeah.
That
A
is
lot
not
of people.
easier said than
For
done.
a lot of people.
What I realized and stuff, I want to say probably in the earlier part of my life, like maybe like in my 20s, my early 20s and stuff to like say mid 20s, I look at stuff as like, no. It's not me. But then when you start owning your shit, like accountability, you're looking like,
Yeah.
well, okay, I know I'm here, but I want to be better. What do I do to be better, right?
100%.
A lot of people want stuff. They like what I'm taking and stuff is that you're one of those individuals I want to say with your testimonials in your community help get you to that mark, whatever. And some people, they don't know where to go. What would you recommend? Would it be like
I think
church or faith?
well, this is the thing, right? I could recommend church, but it's just finding a community group. There's a lot of groups out there. You know, I think one's called the Lions Club for men.
Yeah.
You know, that get together and they mentor young boys and stuff.
Right.
There's groups like that. It's harder for men because there's more women's groups out there than there are men's groups. But I'm saying get together with a group of like-minded brothers. You know, find like-minded brothers that you can talk and share with. You know, you're not in this world alone. It's very important to remember that we were never created to be alone. A lot of people say, I like being alone. Find people that are drama-free. If you're around people that's always in people's business and are full of drama, then get away from them. Find people that are going or where you want to be and connect with them.
It's funny when you say that because I was watching shout out to Elaine, Miss Ghetto Stories. Her post. So she's been I guess Dr. Umar's been here for the past couple of days, so she's been following him around and posting some of the stuff. But one of the things that a similar question was asked, right? And one of the things that he was saying is that, and prior when you were talking about church and being within the community group, one of the things is he was saying is that we got to get back to creating healing circles.
Right.
Right. And it goes, where's the healing circle in Toronto? Where's the healing circle in Montreal?
What does that mean?
Healing circle.
Explain to me like I'm stupid.
Healing circle is like just like Aubrey was saying, a bunch of us getting together, sitting down and discussing, opening up about what's troubling us and helping heal. That's what it's called. That's why it's called a healing circle. Right. Okay. So he goes, where is that for you guys have any of that for Black men? I was like, and when he said that, it brought me back to when we were at the barbershop when we were doing the whole mental health thing. And it was like, yeah, it's like the people that were there talking, it took a little while because you can tell the people that were there weren't used to it.
Right.
Right? But once we started getting talking and then people started to feel comfortable, you started seeing this person starting to open up now. This person started opening up now. This person starting to open up. And not only are they opening up, but the person who wasn't speaking now, he had a thought that may have helped that person. So
for sure.
He started speaking up. And I was like, yo, this is dope. And it's like, yo, this is needed because again.
When you explain the circle thing, it's just like a AA meeting.
Yes.
Right? Because you have an AA meeting and stuff, whatever, and it's multiple sessions.
Right.
So let's say if the duration of this first AA meeting is like an hour, and that first hour, maybe all 13 people might not speak.
Right.
Come like the following week, maybe 6 more people might speak and stuff like that because the comfortability. I think when you're trying to compress to get all that energy within like a 2-3 hour seminar or a 1 day seminar, it might be a lot for people to kind of open up and stuff and kind of heal what they don't reveal, right?
Right.
But I get what you're saying and stuff, but like, yes, there tons. I think the world needs more of that. But I feel like
would you say
create it?
Would you say oh my, can't remember his name now. He does the iron sharpens iron. Would you say that's similar to
Troy?
Yes,
yes, that's exactly what Troy tries to do, right?
Right.
Yeah, Troy Crossfield, by the way, really great actor, really good man.
Yeah.
So you guys gave me an idea, and I was thinking about, can you imagine if every barber shop once a month brought a psychotherapist in to the barbershop just to sit there? Don't even say they're a psychologist, just to sit there and just join the conversation. Somebody's a therapist. Just, even salons or whatever. Every now and then you have a bunch of therapists that just go through the different community barbershops and just sit there and listen to, because barbershops have the greatest conversations. Sometimes some real in-depth conversations, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about
it's a place of therapy, right? But the only problem is a lot of times the barbers don't know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? They're talking, it's good, but they're just talking for the sake. It's debate. It's just debate, right?
Yeah.
The intention is there, right? But if you had somebody who's a professional, just to go around the barbershops and just sit in the barbershops and just listen and enjoy the conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the way of even getting healed. That might even be a good business idea for a psychotherapist as well too.
I know 2 psychotherapists and stuff, and their thing and stuff is that a lot of times people are more standoffish when they know they might be possibly analyzed, right? So it's kind of like when you have the psychotherapist in there sitting there like you're saying, just ghost dog,
right?
And just chiming in every now and then. It's a different energy compared to like if you know that this person is there.
Yeah.
You look like,
but it's almost like if the psychotherapist
now
is
you're
like, for
looking at
instance,
this person as, this is a sage, as opposed to, this person's a psychotherapist.
For
instance, a lot of people might ask, they'll ask, if I'm in a barbershop, we're talking, I start breaking stuff down, they'll ask you, are you a therapist? Or you, or something like that, right? Yeah, they ask your background and stuff, right? But I'm just saying, just if you need a haircut and you're a psychotherapist, just go to a barbershop every now and then, just sit there and join the conversation, right? You just need more even life coaches, just people that have more experience and more knowledge, just to be amongst and letting them know that it's okay, and you guys just brought up, so tomorrow I'm going to go to my barbershop and drop off a couple of copies of my book, donate some there. Now that you guys just brought that up, right?
There you go. And because for all the barbershops who've heard this, know where you heard it first. We know y'all know where you heard it first.
Right. You know what I mean? Because I think it's important, you know. And actually, when I was doing this book first, it was called From the Heart of a Man, right?
And what
And
what made you change
I'll
it?
tell you what made me change it, because I was taking too long to put it out, right? Because From the Heart of a Man is going to be a sequel to this. And what it's going to do, I'm going to interview a bunch of different men about just what they're going through in their relationships and whatever. Of course, they're going to be anonymous,
Okay.
but they'll be in here along with some poems and stuff, but their experiences and what from their point of view, right? You know, maybe I shouldn't be saying it on camera so somebody steals my idea, but you know,
It's
what I mean?
timestamped. You
But
said it.
yeah,
It came off your lips.
but
Know where you heard it
regardless,
first, people.
right? But I mean, it's already in the works, right? But just interviewing different black men,
Yeah.
you know,
I think
different black men about what they're going through, right? And stuff. And that's what it was supposed to be along with the poems and stuff. But what I did was saying, you know what? I've been holding on to this too long. Some of the poems are in here from the 90s.
Why did you hold on to it for so long?
Procrastination limits opportunities. And maybe, you know what? I believe everything in timing.
Okay.
I'll tell you too, right? In the olden days, you never used to be able to self-publish your books. Everything had to go through a publisher
Right.
and everything. But now I know how to do it since I have, you know, the 4 children's books out and I've been in the school system. You know, I can publish a book like this. And now, as you're saying with ChatGPT, you can get ChatGPT to edit your book for you. You just put paragraph by paragraph, edit this paragraph, edit this paragraph, edit this paragraph. And you don't even need to necessarily go and look for an editor.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
So we're gonna put out our coffee table book on his publishing house and Breeze
You
publishing
can.
house. We're gonna put up.
You can.
Not.
You can.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, we can do that, man. It's the family thing.
I always feel like there's for every correction there's an overcorrection and stuff, whatever, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
everybody is their own personal like critic. Like I look at the stuff as like even like abstract art and stuff over there, right? Some people might look at just like blotches of paint.
Right.
And then to this artist, it might just express like a whole feeling and expression they were going through at the time of creation. And then it's like, okay, now you have to go sell it or move it somewhere or show it in a gallery piece. And they're like, I feel like it's missing something. Were you feeling like that when you made your book? Because you said from the 90s.
Right.
you
So
had-
I'll tell you why. It's very interesting that you said that, right? When I started going through some of the poems, I found that some of the poems were repetitive in some of the words and phrases. And I went through them and I found better words now, as you're saying that, right?
Okay.
I found better words that, you know, to where I am in life now. Like I remember I wrote another
grown and changed. Yeah.
I wrote another book way back when that I actually didn't release, right? It had a lot of these poems in it and other stuff in it. And when I look back to where I was then and how naive, I thought I knew everything and how naive I was glad I never published it. You know what I mean? Because views have changed.
Right.
And maturity levels have changed. You know what I mean?
You would have been doing
You
some
know?
walking back.
Right.
Right.
Even in this book, there's a poem in here, right, called You Said You'd Never Leave, right? It sounds very bitter, right? And then at the end of it, I was going to write something saying that, hey, I'm no longer in this place. But I said to myself, there's still somebody who's in that place and needs to analyze the way they're feeling. So when they read this, you know, that poem, it's going to be for them. I might not be there anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why, you know, I wrote the poems the way that I wrote them. I wrote poems from a man's perspective when he's fighting with his woman and his wife and what he wish she would say to him. You know what I mean? And how he wished she would speak to him. All he wants is respect in the argument. We can disagree, but respect me while we're disagreeing.
Right.
Right.
And we'll be good. And I think that's what happens with both men and women, right? They're so angry that they start disrespecting each other and not realizing this is somebody that you love. If I love you, why am I trying to hurt you? Because you hurt me? Why do I want you to feel the way that I felt if I truly love you?
Tit for tat.
You know what I mean?
That's
This
it
tit
tells
for
you the
tat,
growth.
and all
It
it
tells you the
does-
growth of the individual, though,
Right.
right?
All it does is create more damage. And then you go back and you regret it. But words are some things that you can't take back. Words go deep into your spirit.
Yeah.
I don't approve physical violence, but if you punch somebody, the person's gonna heal where you punched them. But when you say certain things, that word might never come out of their spirit, what you said to them. And people don't realize that.
That's about it.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if people, and another thing that I find in relationships is that one person always wants it solved right now, when the other person might just need time.
How long is the time to wait?
Sometimes it could just be 24 hours.
Yeah, I think 24 hours see, here's the thing. I dated a woman one time, right? She said she needed 7 days to mull over a situation, one particular situation. I said, boo, you need therapy. You don't need me.
No, I understand exactly
Because
what you're
my
saying.
time frame and stuff is not to wait for that long when it's a problem that you and I can discuss and see if we can find equilibrium or understanding and stuff within possibly a 24-hour time frame.
Right.
But if the person needs time to mull over things first, have the discussion, still think about it, process it, bring it to other parties and everything, then say, okay, I'm ready or I'm over it. We're on different time zones.
Yeah, sometimes people just need to calm down so that they're not in. See, when you're angry, you're gonna say things out of anger, right?
course.
Yeah.
It's the saying to say, "Be angry and offend not," right? The scripture said, "Be angry and sin not," right? But be angry and offend not. You know, meaning that I'm angry with you, but I'm not gonna say all kinds of mean things to hurt you. I'm gonna let you know. I used to date this one girl, and I appreciated her for this. Anytime I did anything to upset her, she would call me and say, you know what you said really bothered me. Just like that, in a
Right.
very loving, quiet way. And we talk about it, and then we go on laughing and whatever.
That's
after.
healthy.
Yeah.
You know, that was the one thing I really admired about her. You know, never rah, 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 rah. You know, she would give me the opportunity to explain, because we live in, especially with this English language, right? The words can mean different things in tone and text. Text is the worst thing.
Text.
Never discuss anything that's crucial and important over
Shit, did
text.
you see it? You'll be surprised how many people and stuff are send their spouse a paragraph.
Right.
Where it would be better to communicate this with words to catch inflection, but That's what works
the
for them.
problem with text is that you can't tell tone. Right. You can assume tone, because maybe the last time the person said this phrase to you, they said it in an angry way, but maybe now they're saying it in a gentle way. But you're still hearing that anger, right? And this is where the miscommunication is. So it's always important, right, to ask for clarification. Somebody says something to you that might offend you, stop before you get offended and say, what did you mean by that? So that they can stop and catch themselves and explain what they meant. Because they might really not meant to offend you. It just came out wrong.
Right.
And especially, a lot of us have problems articulating words. We can't find the right word to say, so we say
Communication is
another
the
word
problem.
instead, and that word might come across offensive, you know?
Yeah.
And one who's too, quickly offended is a foolish person, right? Just stop and just find out. Ask. And you'd be surprised how many, there's no argument once you ask for clarification. And I've witnessed people do this with their parents, but don't do it with their spouse. Like the father or mother might say something and they say, Mom, Dad, what do you mean by that? Before they go off.
Right.
But with their spouse,
because I think most people don't want to look stupid. That's the
you
thing.
see, it's pride.
It's
and
pride.
as the saying comes, pride goes before destruction, right?
Exactly.
And I think it's important, what did give a person, always believe the best about the person that you're with before you believe the worst. I live by that motto. So if I'm with you because I believe you're a good person. So I'm going to believe the best about you before I believe the worst, right? So I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain to me. Then if you explain to me and I was right, then we can deal with the situation then, right? But I think it's very important not to jump to conclusion. And in the book, there's some poems that allude to that as well, too.
Is there any poems in here up talking about being celebrated as a man?
Actually,
Now that you mentioned it.
well, I wouldn't say necessarily being celebrated, but it talks about the fall, how a man felt when he fell in his struggles and getting back up, right? Right? For instance, this poem says, I had it all. How did I fall? I was a successful businessman whom so many admired. I was filled with passion and determination. Nothing could put out my fire. I made hundreds of thousands and drove fine cars, but I fell like a falling star. Now I walk with pride, but I'm shattered inside, trying to find my footing, but with every step I slip. This is a horrible trip. I do believe in me. I believe that I have a destiny. yearning for my twin flame, hungering to be financially whole again. My life is in a constant state of disarray. Hopefully, I will admit it to myself one day so that I can remove all the doubt and find out my way. Will any woman love me through my struggles, or am I stuck in this solitude bubble? Taking responsibility is in my control. There has to be a reason I keep missing my business goals. I fell and got back up, but I'm still down. It's time to seek therapy so that I can remove this frown. I know so much, but even billionaires have a mentor, so it's time for me to find someone to help me center. I had it all, and I intend to find out how did I fall, so that I can once again stand tall. Time to look deep within. I know I am a king who deserves to win.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So-
yeah.
So it's really about, admitting to yourself and seeking help, right? Because a lot of us have so much pride, especially when we were, I have some friends who, achieved some great successes in life. And because of those successes, it keeps them from flying, from climbing. Why? Because they don't want to go work that mediocre job once they were the CEO of this company.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, while they're trying to find their footing, they just fall deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole. See, me, I'm not ashamed to say, I remember when I first left radio and I opened my own ad agency, I was struggling for a while, because
Right.
it was the beginning, right? And then
Yeah.
I went and I was helping my uncle out with their bookstore, selling books, but I wasn't making a lot of money, from it. And then I decided to go work at a call center, selling insurance and stuff for $11 and something cents an hour while I was doing the thing with my aunt and uncle. And I had this boss that was making $60,000 a year look down at me and chump me for getting up and going to the washroom because his bosses were in the center. Man, I called him in the room and I looked at him and I said, yo, bro, don't ever speak to me like that again.
Right.
I did. I said to him, I brought him in the room. He was my boss, the big boss. I said, don't ever speak to me like that again. I go, I'm only here, not because I have to. I've made twice the amount of money you've made. And that's what I said to him. And I said, you're here because you have to. I'm only here passing through, but don't ever speak to me like that again. And he's like, yeah, that was number one seller too, right?
Right.
So he was like, I'm sorry. He actually said sorry, you know what I mean, to me. But I say that to say that I humbled myself to go work a job, you know what I mean, that just to make ends meet while I found my footing.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was that I remember that I met this girl out of the club and she invited me over for dinner. And she said, I got the dinner, you bring the bottle of wine. I go, what wine do you want? The wine that she told me at that time was like triple the price that I'm used to paying for wine. Bro, when I tell you that I had to scrape every penny in the house to go through the change drawers and everything to buy the bottle of wine, right? And I went there, and the funny thing, she owned an agency of herself, right? She had her own agency. And then when we were there having dinner, she said to me, she goes, so how's your agency going? I go, oh, it's the beginning. She goes, it's hard to do an agency, right? And she goes, maybe you should get back into, and she didn't even know my situation. She goes, maybe you should get back into selling radio while you build your agency at the same time.
Right.
And I'll tell you, that's when I actually got on and I applied to go back into radio again. And I remember that I had applied there and I had applied to TD Bank at the same time to work there.
Yeah.
TD was paying like $40,000 a year and it was a night shift. And I'm like, okay, that's decent. The other job in radio was only paying $24,000 plus 10% commission.
Right.
And I was like, what should I take? And I'm like, TD is the easy way out. Like, a matter of fact, both jobs were like 5 minutes drive from each other in Markham. I said, I'm going to do both. It's so funny. I said to myself, I'm going to do both until I figure out which one I want. I'll sleep in my car for that time, then go over to the next one, right? And TD called me back and says, we checked your credit and we can't offer you the job because you don't have your credit. You still have some stuff on your credit. Best thing that ever happened to me in my life. The reason being is because I took that other job, right? And the job I took, I ended up finishing that year at $115,000. you know, and then working with that company, Ed and Frank Torres, of course, great guys at Skywards.
Right.
They allowed me to be part of the company and bid for radio stations, learn the whole process of learning how to bid for radio stations. You know, I helped their company grow significantly, where we hired more sales
Nice.
reps
Right.
and all those things, right? And I learned so much in that time, and I was able now to reopen my agency. You know,
Nice.
whereas that company was like 90% of my income, that company now is maybe like 5% of my income. I still help those guys out and stuff because they're great guys.
Right.
But now my agency is full time and I make double the money that I used to make. But all through that experience, you know, of humbling myself, you know, and going back, you know, taking that route
Right.
of going down before I went back up
Right.
again, right?
Yeah.
And every setback I've had in my life, I've always come back greater. And this is why, you know, even in relationships, when something doesn't work out, I say that I believe that the latter is always greater than the former. So I know the next one's going to be better. And I look at that with job, everything in my life. That's the perspective I take.
That's good.
You know? Yeah.
That's good. Some people and stuff, they have like self-doubt for certain things and stuff, where they just think everything's going to be the same as it was. It's like, they're like, oh, I'm trading this evil for the same amount of evil and everything like that. But at least if your perspective is a little bit more positive, the same way how you're looking at it, I feel like you give yourself a chance to see better things, like we talk about all the time. If you look for the bad, you're going to find bad.
You're gonna find it.
Right.
So if you're looking for the good, this is what you're going to find. You're going to find good things to happen.
It's interesting. I always hated reading growing up. Other than when I was in primary school, and I loved library time when the teacher would read to us, right? And my aunt and uncle always used to buy us books for Christmas, and I hated it. The same aunt and uncle that owned the bookstore, right? And now I'm an author. But it's so funny that when they opened their bookstore and I started, you know, helping them out at the bookstore, I fell in love with children's literature because there were so many, you know, themes in the books, life lessons. And I'd go to the daycares and the schools and be able to tell the stories and sell so many books for them, not realizing I was creating something inside myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I had stayed in radio at Flow and hadn't left, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have had that opportunity to engulf myself in that world where I'm an author now, right? And, you know, a question before we went live, you had asked me a question about what led up to me writing my first children's book. Right. So when I was in church, I used to help out with the young mothers group, right? Single moms group. And those kids love me. I used to make them sing the Uncle Aubrey song in front of the church. Who's your favorite uncle in the whole wide world? Right? And I just noticed that a lot of children, right, didn't necessarily believe in themselves because they never seen their parents achieving, you know, certain things. So they didn't know that they necessarily can achieve it. And I remember I wrote Fly Little Blackbird Fly with that in mind, you know, with the whole thing. A mother blackbird, her wing had been broken before her children were born. So her daughter never knew that she could fly because the mother doesn't fly. And it happens so often that parents go through traumatic experiences in their life where their dreams are put on hold, where they don't achieve what they want to achieve. And us as kids, because our parents aren't vocal, never tell us what happened to them, that we don't necessarily have a role model to look at, right? And in the story, Fly Little Blackbird Fly, Joy walks everywhere she goes. And she gets bullied by the raccoon and skunk. But she has this one friend, Motivate, the white dove who lives in the tree, that says, Joy, come fly with me and see this world full of success and beauty. And Joy would look at her and say, don't you know blackbirds can't fly? Look at my mother, she'd cry, right? And that's because she never saw a blackbird fly, you know? Until one day she finally saw another blackbird that looked like herself flying. And she ran home and said, Mom, I saw a blackbird fly. She looked just like me. I did. And her mom looked at her and said, why are you so surprised to see a blackbird fly? And she said to her mom, if blackbirds fly, then how come we don't? And her mom started to cry and told her all about the accident she had while flying over Eglinton Flats, where we grew up, right? And for the first time, she felt that she had a chance to do everything her friends could do and more. So every day she got back up and flapped her wings hard. And then when she was finally about to take off, a strong wind came and knocked her back down. And she was about to give up, but she had a vision of that blackbird that gave her hope that she saw flying, was determined that she too would fly. So she got back up and flapped her wings hard until finally she flew. And she flew so high that even Motivate couldn't fly as high as her. right? And then she met that blackbird right where the sun shone the brightest. And Hope looked at her and said, "My name is Hope." Joy blinked her eyes in admiration, and as quickly she did that, Hope disappeared into the sun, right? But the caveat is Miss Blackbird had laid 2 eggs, but only one of them had hatched. Miss Blackbird had thought her other egg had died, right? And buried it in a secret place. But that night there was a thunderstorm that pushed the egg out of the place it was buried, and it went over the cliff into the eagle's nest. So many times in life, storms come in our life, and we don't understand that those storms are actually working out for our good, right? So now, the eagles now were never able to have kids of their own. So now this blackbird hatches in their nest. They're about to eat it, and all of a sudden their eggs hatch. And they looked at the blackbird and said, "I will call you Hope, for surely you've brought us good fortune. We'll adopt you and you'll be part of our family." Now, Hope goes through all of these tests and challenges and beats her eagle brothers and all these tests. But then one day she looks at her parents and says, "Why do I look so much different than the rest of the family?" And they tell her that she was adopted. So Hope flies off in search of her real family. She looks down and sees another blackbird like herself. While Joy looks up and finds her Hope. Hope looks down and finds her Joy. Right?
Deep.
So, in these stories, and at the end of the story, Hope and Joy get caught by the hawk, the bully. And now Miss Blackbird has to remember who she is, which is in the 3rd book. Remember that she was once a fast flyer. Find the courage to learn to fly again. Right? So, in this story, there's so much in the story that's so deep, right? I go to high schools with the same children's book and talk about it, right? There's just so many levels to the whitebird living in a tree and eating the sweet cherries, while the blackbird and the mom live on the ground. They eat the rotten cherry. We talk about systemic issues, why didn't Miss Blackbird tell her that she couldn't fly? There's just so much. So when I tell people these are adult books, for children, I wrote the stories in mind that mothers would be reading it to their kids and being freed from what they were going through.
That's beautiful.
That's nice.
You know what
That's
I mean?
Really nice.
So, and all the stories that I write have that healing aspect to it, that whatever I write, there's hidden messages in everything, even in the love poems and stuff, there's messages in there to tell people what to look for and how to heal. Yeah.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. So
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what needed. That's what, people need to help heal.
Right.
Right. We all have a form of, I don't want to use trauma. Trauma is such a umbrella type of phrase, but I want to say we've all been through things that we probably haven't gotten over, and we probably decompartmentalized the problem, and then now finally to kind of, I want to say, hold yourself accountable to open up this department and say, you know what, I need to fix this, I need to look at this. And a lot of times they put it away until it's resurfaced to their face.
It's true. Yeah. There's just so much. Growing up, we didn't have books with Black characters or written by Black folks growing up to.
But now we can see ourselves.
But now, there's so many books and authors out there now. In my book, Charlene the Mean Queen, Charlene's a little girl that hears her parents fighting and arguing. And it's the last day that she sees her dad. So she gets sad, then she gets mad, and of course her behavior becomes bad. So she goes to school. And as soon as the teacher leaves to get the lunches for the class, she turns into the mean queen, mean as can be. And she bullies everybody. The story's kind of funny, throughout the story. But what ends up happening is the teacher catches her and she gets suspended from school on her favorite day, which is Pizza Fridays. Now she's at home and she's dreaming and she's sad and she's thinking about everything. She still doesn't have her father, but she doesn't have any more friends. So she says to herself, this doesn't make any sense. So she goes back to school and becomes a super nice queen and apologizes to everybody. And now she has friends, still missing her dad. But you see, when I tell the story at schools, I add another part in there to say that Charlene's father went to a mental hospital because he had bipolar disorder and he needed help.
Right.
And then when he comes home, now Charlene's there to help him with his medication. And sometimes he has flare-ups, sometimes he doesn't, but now she understands. You know what I mean? There's all these issues that we go through. You know what I mean? Human problems, issues in life. And I think these are, it just helps to open up discussions. And these are the discussions. A lot of us are suffering from issues. I can't say that I don't get depressed at times, but the reason I don't stay depressed is because of my faith. And then, like I say, right, I look at it and I
Nice.
said, this is just a feeling. You know, I'm able to tell myself this is just a feeling. I remember I went to a Tony Robbins conference one time, and Tony said one thing: it is impossible to get up and jump and move around and be depressed. You're just not biologically capable, because what happens, your endorphins start moving, right? And your body chemically starts shifting.
Right.
So if you're jumping and screaming yes and positive things, that feeling starts to go away. But the problem is some people just can't even get themselves up to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So it's to acknowledge when you're falling in and to get up before you fall deeper
Before you
in.
fall deeper in.
Right? And I think that's important. And it's important to look at your friends. I remember when I was going through a rough time one time, and I was at work. My coworkers came in my office and said, "Yo, Bree, you're not yourself. There's something wrong." You know, and they're all girls. They go, "You're not happy. You're not laughing like you used to laugh." Even my bosses at the time had called me in the office and asked me if I was okay, because they could see the shift.
Right.
My aunt was a psychiatric nurse, and she said to me, "You don't look like yourself." You know what I mean? And that's when I knew that I had to do something different. You know, without getting too personal on camera and whatever, I had to make a shift and a change. And I did. You know what I mean? I got out of the situation I was in, and it took me probably over a year, maybe 2 years, to get back to the happy-go-lucky, person I was.
Right.
But
You know
you
what I
got
mean?
there.
But I was okay. I wasn't depressed anymore, but I still wasn't smiling and happy-go-lucky, laughy, as you used to say, right? And it took me, but it was recognizing that I could work towards getting back to where I was. A lot of people are in denial. I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's important, like you're saying, iron sharpens iron, to be around people with positive energy that can bring you up. I remember one person looked at me when I said that I was going to publish my children's book and told me I was a dreamer. Somebody I was dating.
Usual.
They told me, "Oh, you're just a dreamer. No, use the money towards this,
Right.
towards our this or that. You're just a dreamer." And I said, "Yeah, I am a dreamer, and I'm never gonna stop dreaming." And now that book,
good.
that book takes me everywhere. You know what I mean? I can't even lie. During the pandemic, while people were suffering, I made like $28,000 in February alone speaking at schools over the computer.
That's good.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like,
I don't
it's like, when people don't have your vision.
no, but
Yeah.
the thing and stuff is that not everybody's gonna have your vision, and the thing and stuff is that you should go where you're loved. Like I look at
Right.
it stuff as that if it came to us, this is not our 50th show. This is not our 150th show.
Right.
We're over 300 episodes and counting. If we listen to the naysayers and everything like that, we want to get to as far where we needed to get. They
Right.
don't see our vision, and that's fine. You go where you love.
100%.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. I remember I took my book. I was in front of Scholastic one time. Scholastic's the big publisher.
books, yeah.
When I first did my children's book there, Fly Little Blackbird Fly, and I showed somebody at Scholastic the book, and they said, "Oh, that's too long for a children's picture book." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Okay." That was the one first. And I said, "I'm going to publish it myself." And because I published it the way I did, I'm able to be a preferred speaker at the Catholic Children's Aid Society. I can speak from JK all the way to high school to women's groups in the same book, because I had the vision that this book wasn't just for babies, but
Right.
it was for everybody.
Right.
I remember the one thing that inspired me to keep going was, I remember there was this 4-year-old girl that was diagnosed with selective mutism. So it's a social anxiety disorder, meaning that they could speak at home but can't speak at school,
Okay.
right? And some kids never grow out of it. But her mom read her my book, and she said to her mom, "Mom, if I try harder at school, speak at school, do you like the Blackbird? Do you think I can?" I was like, when her mom told me, I was like, "What?" And now if you see that little girl, she's a big girl now, she's like social butterfly, excelling in so many sports and so many things.
That's awesome.
And,
Yeah.
for me, just that little change,
Yeah,
the little
yeah.
Blackbird didn't give up, inspired that little girl to do it. I remember my dad was selling the books for me at his work, and his coworker bought it for her 4-year-old, right? But her 16-year-old picked up and read it. And the lady came back to work crying and said, my 16-year-old read the book and said now she's going to follow her dreams to be a doctor.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
You know, those are the kind of stories that you hear, you know. I mean, when myself and Karen Jules, because of course my book, I wrote some songs.
Shout
for the
out
book,
Karen.
right?
Shout out Karen.
Karen Jules, yep, one of the greatest singers in Toronto. When she comes to the schools with me, or even Ariana Zenwa or Nicole Coco Lorraine, right? You'll see the teachers start tearing up when the song comes on. Some teachers are like in tears, and you're like, whoa.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because they're really moved. I remember one teacher came up to me and says, I was that little blackbird. I had so many dreams, and I'm a teacher because, oh, this happened or that happened, you know? And then another one says, my sister and her husband were trying to have kids just like the Eagles for years, and then they finally adopted and had a kid. And
I was about to say, a lot of the people
Yeah,
relate
so-
to Eagle stories and stuff.
Right. So, you know, and you just see so many people's lives that are changed by this little story that you write, right? And all of us have a book inside of us. Every single one of us have a story. And it's funny how people say, I can't write a book, but just when they're speaking to their friends, they're telling stories.
Telling stories, yeah.
Right? If they were to record their stories and turn their stories into text, just when they're speaking, just record, you know how you have the voice to text?
Yeah.
Just do that. Whenever you're speaking and telling a story, you'd have a book right there. And now with all the technology, you can say, rearrange this paragraph so it flows better or whatever.
Yeah,
You don't have to pay somebody thousands of dollars to do it anymore, right?
Right.
The AI thing.
Like me, you know, a great person, Christine Ferris, illustrated my first book, right? The hardcover that you have.
Okay.
You know, unfortunately, she had some things come up where she couldn't have illustrated the soft covers because she was busy and stuff like that. But we live in a world now where you can go to the Philippines or India and get somebody to illustrate your book for a fraction of the cost of illustrating it here. I remember you're paying $100, $200 a page, sometimes more in North America, and you're paying $10, $5 a page on the other side of the world. You know what I mean? So there's really no excuses for people not to be able to live out their dreams.
Right.
You know, and one thing about books that I encourage everybody to write a book is that long after your family is dead and gone, your books are going to be here. You're the living word. Just like I said, you know, scripture talks about Jesus was word that became flesh or whatever. You know, you think about it, we're spirits that live in a body, right? And your words are like spirits. When you put your words down in writing, it lives on long after you.
Facts.
Long after you.
Facts.
You know what I mean? And that's the one thing. I don't have any kids of my own now, you know what I mean? But I have my books. My books and my words are going to live on long after any of my genealogy will.
Well said.
You know?
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Okay. Appreciate you for coming through, man. Are you ready?
Thank you guys for having me, man.
No
This is
problem.
amazing.
No problem.
No, just
We'll get to the question of the week. Have you participate in some of that, and we'll keep going. Question of the week says, what is something about relationships you've learned as you've aged? So let's say from your time of you dating, let's say to the woman you lost your virginity to, what have you learned about that relationship compared to the relationship?
I will tell you one thing I've learned. It's important to look for your happiness as well as the other person's happiness. You know, like a lot of times I was always that pleaser person that I would discount things that I need, you know, just to try and help somebody else. And I think it's important that while you're doing that, also make sure that person can fulfill your needs as well, too. Right? It's not selfish to want some of your emotional needs met within, you know, within reason. Within reason, right? You're not wanting a woman to be your mother or anything like that, right? Which some men probably do because they have issues, right? But if you need her to respect you in a certain way, don't settle. Just the same way she needs you to respect her in a certain way. Don't settle. I learned to believe the best about people before believing the worst, as I said earlier.
Right.
You know, I learned that it's a lot more than just physical attraction. You know, somebody can get in an accident tomorrow. Looks will change.
right.
I think that's it for me. What about you? The reason I'll tell you like before you start.
Yeah, for sure.
My thing and stuff is the physical thing and stuff is that I think some space, shape, or form in most people's minds and stuff is that you're always going to look like the way I met you.
Right.
Right.
Right? When circumstances and things and stuff, and age and time and gravity will play a factor in a whole bunch of things and stuff like that, right? And I think that's where beauty plays a factor, but not a major one. Because aesthetic and stuff can go so far and stuff for that. Because like I said all the time, we say it all the time. This world's not spinning out ugly people anymore. So there's a lot of people that's going to be aesthetically appeasing to you, but I guess within. And I love your definition of the beauty thing and stuff, whatever, right? Sometimes appeasing to the soul. So I look at it stuff as where beyond the physicality, there has to be something about you that I dig and I enjoy that inner beauty.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. It's funny that you say that because, I have a specific, physical type that I like, right? But then there's some girls that don't fall into that line of my physical type that I'll make an exception for because their personalities are so beautiful and you love them as a friend. You know what I mean?
You know them on a human level.
On a different level.
Before you get to even an attraction level.
Right. So you're emotionally attracted to that person, right? And there's some people that you meet that whether they gain weight or don't gain weight, you're always going to be attracted to them. And there's other people, if their looks change, you're like, get it, I don't want nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? So it's important to know that about a person. To marry a friend, somebody who has a lot of things in common with you. I mean, you're not going to have everything in common, but the core values is very important, that you enjoy each other's company, that you don't necessarily enjoy your boy's company more than you enjoy your woman's company. Right. And vice versa. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that's extremely important.
Have you ever been married before?
I've never been married before, but I've been in a long-term relationship. But I've come to understand that just about people in general, right? To be, and I can't lie, I've never been married, but I've counseled a lot of people, believe it or not, that have been married and helped them through their situations, right? And I find a common thing is a lot of people they love each other, but they stop liking each other. And there's things about each other that they might have thought would have changed when they got married. And that's a big mistake that people make, is they married potential. Right. Rather than marrying knowing that if this person never changes, I'm going to be happy with them. And that's what people have to say. With their faults that they have now, if those faults, I hope they would change, but if they never change, I would still be happy. And I think that's one of the most important things, right? Right. Don't fool. If faith is important to you as a person, don't fool yourself and say it isn't. Because later on, when you get into deeper in your relationship and problems come up, and that's an important thing for you, then it's going to create issues. You know what I mean? Whatever is important. I mean, down to things about just belief systems, right? Yeah. If you're with a partner that doesn't support LGBT plus 2+ or whatever, and your kid comes to you and says that, hey, I want to be part of this community, and your partner's like, kick them out of the house, I don't want nothing to do with them, and you're like, no, it's going to create rifts. You have to be on the same page with your partner in your belief system. I think that's very important. That's another thing that I've learned. You can't, you want to overlook stuff. I mean, I've met some amazing women. I mean, when I talk about as friends and even attraction, but I know there's some core belief issues that we don't agree on. And because they're so much into that and I'm so much not, I know it's if we got together as friends or as, kicking it, we're cool. But if we have to merge our lives together, it's not going to be cool. And people have to be realistic about those things, right? And it's not about just emotions and feelings. Sometimes you have to let good things go, or things you believe are good go, for the better, to be patient and wait for the better thing.
Smooth. Talk about it.
I was actually, it's funny because I was actually thinking even just a flip of that. Whereas what I've noticed is, sometimes you may have to give up a little bit of yourself in order for that other person to come in and be compatible.
What do you mean by that?
And the other part on top of that is that when you do that, you got to make sure that person is the right person that you're going to give up that little bit part of yourself in order to make that compatible. And what I mean by that is just going back to what Aubrey said. You can't have your woman and feel like you can do the bar every Friday with your boys.
Right.
You understand? Because there's gonna be a Friday
Right.
where your woman needs you. Right?
Right.
So now you gotta be willing to sacrifice that part of your life. And your boys have got to be willing to understand that you are now in a new phase of your life that doesn't require you sitting with them every Friday.
100%.
And then the Fridays that you do get to sit with them, it's still all love. We know you got responsibilities, but we are understanding that you have to give up this part in order to be compatible with your other. And like I said, and again, make sure the person who you're gonna do that sacrifice for is that one, because you don't want to be now in that relationship saying to yourself, I gave up this.
Well, how do you
I
know?
gave up
But
that.
how would you know?
But to me, it wouldn't really be giving up, because for me, if you're about love languages, right, it makes you happy if you're truly happy to
Right.
please somebody, that's not really giving it up. It's really just, I wouldn't look at it as giving it up. If you really want to do it,
Right,
Because
right.
you're not only just doing it for her, you're also doing it for yourself, because you got something to gain from making her happy too, right?
Right, yes.
So, but one of the most important things is the communication before you even get to the marriage point or the deep relation point, right? Expectations. A lot of couples don't manage expectations. They don't talk about their expectations before they get married.
Agree.
And I remember my aunt and uncle said that. They sat me down and said to me, it says, most couples today don't talk about their expectations, even when it comes to disciplining children, raising children, where they want to live, what school systems they want to go to.
Right.
They don't talk about these important things, what matters. They said in their time, you kind of grew up with a lot of the same morals, and that you came from the same communities. Your parents probably knew each other. You had a lot of the same values.
Right.
So you didn't really feel like you had to talk about certain things because it was just it's a societal norm.
Right.
But there is no societal
Societal
norm.
norm. We
anymore.
spoke about that last week.
Yeah,
Last
societal
week we
norms
spoke
don't
about
really
that.
exist anymore.
Right.
And
But then the religions still do.
right, and even the way a conservative versus a liberal might be religious is different too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, so many things have changed, and it's important not to assume, but to ask questions, important questions.
I think in most, I don't know. For me, my opinion and stuff is that in most dating circles, they don't ask each other the right proper questions, right? And expectations and stuff comes into the line and stuff like that as well, right? But then again, how do you expect somebody who doesn't know self to ask proper questions? So I think everybody should take the time to fix or work on themselves. I don't say fix like you're broken, but take the time to work on yourself, to understand yourself to a better level before you can attach yourself to someone else.
You know what I think is really selfish too? A lot of men will see good women out there knowing they have no intention to give the woman what they need. They open her up and break her for the next man. You know what I mean? Like, they're selfish. Like, if you know this woman is wifey material and the other woman is wifey material, and you're gonna open both of them up at the same time, you know you're gonna hurt one of them eventually. It's better that you deal with one at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to know, rather than to, like, I've met some great women, but some things I know, I'm like, you know what? Let me just hold off until this situation here is done. You know what I mean? At least at this point in my life,
Right.
When you were younger, you weren't mature enough to realize that that's what you were doing, right? But if you have enough female friends and you talk to enough women about what they've been through, you don't want to be an addition to their trauma.
Absolutely.
Not if you're a man that has values, right?
Right. Yeah.
Some guys don't care, but if you have values and morals, you don't want to continue to add, because you add trauma to her, you add trauma to her children, and then it goes on and on and on, and the cycle in our community continues.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the problems. We just traumatize each other right down, That's a whole nother situation. It's a whole nother pod altogether.
Okay. Let's get to the Ask the Sons. First Ask the Sons question comes from Sweetie_Leah. She says, what would be your last straw before ending a relationship or friendship? Smooth, go start.
I think that maybe the second time I caught you being dishonest with me.
The second time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kind of like the value thing you were speaking about earlier
Right.
today
Right.
and stuff. With the fair. Okay. What you got, Aubrey?
For me, I think, breaking my trust. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the type of person that I may not cut you off completely,
Mhm.
but I'll keep you at a distance. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But somebody I will cut off completely is somebody who my integrity. You know what I mean? If somebody says something about me being abusive or me, any kind of assault or whatever, something that's not true about me like that,
Right.
you're out of my life. Especially people that drink too much and are drunk all the time and never remember what they do when they're drunk or what they say.
The blackout drunks.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can't deal with that because they put my life at risk, right? Because people have dreams when they're drunk, right? So all of a sudden you wake up and you dream that this guy did this to you or that person did that, and then you're waking up thinking it really happened. And no, I just stay away from people. I stay away. I've come too far in my life now and done
yeah.
right to
Yeah.
be caught up in any Diddy mess. You know what I mean? So I run. I stay far from
Stay
the
far,
drama,
stay
man.
far.
When I see too much drama happening, I just stay far from it. I just go home, chill in my backyard, in my vegetable garden.
And just veg out.
And just, yeah, exactly.
Pun intended.
Pun intended, yeah. But I think that's important, right?
I
Being
think
around people that know who you are as a person.
I think that's my thing. My thing and stuff is that my last straw before ending a relationship or friendship would be if you don't take the time to understand, and I look at it stuff as like listen and speak. I think a lot of people and stuff have a soapbox to stand on. And I think if you do more speaking than listening, I think this is where our relationship will get like wavering because I'm a active listener and I think I know for a fact I'm a good listener.
Right.
But I'll sit there and stuff and I'll listen, but then I'll look at stuff as like, how much are you listening to me? Therefore, how much am I listening to you or vice versa? But if I feel like I'm listening to you more of the time and you're not listening to anything I have to say,
Right.
I think it'd be like, you know what? I don't think this is going to work out for us. Friendship or a relationship.
You like to feel valued. Right?
Mm.
When I say value, that your words mean something, because if they're always the one talking and not listening, then therefore you're not feeling valued.
I think if my words if I don't feel valued, I'm just kind of like more in the star aspect, whatever. Some people got to treat like a star and love them from afar. So I look at it stuff as I'm not forcing anything, but I look at it stuff as the world works on not what you know is who you know. Right. So if I realize I can't get this far in your world like that, then I'll be like, okay, this might not be an interpersonal relationship. This might be more of a business opportunity relationship, so to speak. So I'm not going to sever it right there.
Right.
So I just look at it stuff as, I don't think that anything might need to be severed. It's just I look at it stuff as like, well, my words don't get that far towards you with these particular items. So I'm not going to speak about these things and stuff with you.
Okay.
Because it's not even valued, but I look at it stuff as where I've probably said a ton of things and stuff, whatever, that I might have said to you, and it could have been, I want to say, advantageous for you to get ahead of some things. But if you choose not to listen, I'm not gonna look at you and stuff like, yeah, this is where I cut you off.
Right.
I look at it stuff as where, okay, there's something within there, and if you choose not, I'll identify it, and if you don't want to do anything about it, that's a you problem. I got other fish to fry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Next question comes from Vixin-V. Who is arguably the greatest human or even living being ever to live? What do you guys got?
Wow.
I'm a science man, so I'm gonna go with Fleming. And Alexander Fleming made penicillin, and I think that's where it kind of just penicillin kind of gave a base for like remedies, and it kind of without penicillin, I don't think we would probably get to some levels where basic medications or other medications could do some things. And this has come from Western time.
Penicillin also kills a lot of people.
Penicillin kills people too, yeah.
But
It gives a base.
Right, but that's a good one. Me, other than Jesus, I'm going to say King Solomon.
King Solly
Was the wisest man that ever lived. One of his things that I lived was, it is better to live in the corner of a rooftop alone than to dwell in a big house with a contentious woman.
Yeah.
That was
I
something that
remember
I
that.
lived.
So,
So
says King Solomon.
still says
Still
King
King
Solomon,
Solomon.
right? But I mean, there's so many wisdom. Soft answer turneth away wrath. There's just
Yeah.
so much wisdom from, in Proverbs and Colossians. It's just so much, right? It's Ecclesiastics, that's what it is. Ecclesiastics
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff
and
in there.
Proverbs. There's just so much wisdom in there. That's what I would say, though.
What you got, Smooth?
I'll say Tesla, like the real Tesla, not this Tesla you guys are driving around the cars in.
Nikola
right.
Tesla?
Nikola
Yes.
Tesla,
Mhm.
Mm.
father of modern day electricity.
Okay.
But the funny thing about that is when you look back even to Benjamin Franklin, it's a story saying that it was a slave that actually,
What, with the kite and the key?
yeah, it was actually one of the slaves that came up with the concepts of electricity and stuff, even the light bulb, a lot of inventions that are attributed to some of these people where it was their slaves that actually invented it.
Well, I think that's what it is. The A
And-
students work for the B students, while the C students rule the world. So it's kind of like the genius ones
Mhm.
are just with people and stuff who have more of a marketing, vocal, or heavier
Right.
presence.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's not gonna go anywhere with just you by itself.
Right.
If I be the spokesman for this or spokesperson for this can go to dun 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 dun. And if I get coin from this, I got you.
Right.
And a lot of those things
A
happen
lot.
way too many times.
A lot.
Way too many times. Think about it, like you'll hear songs and stuff now, like from back then, to be like, I was the backup singer for this song and this track, or I wrote this and this and this. To be like, we didn't hear about you back then, but they didn't have the capital or the backing behind them till later.
Right.
All right. The last question comes from Crown-Ya-Dawg. What is it that you wouldn't do for all the money in the world? What wouldn't you do for all the money in the world?
Give up my faith.
Well said.
Well said.
Well said. What about you, Smooth?
Commit murder.
You want to kill somebody for $100 billion?
No, not for money, but he would for his wife, for his kids.
Not for the money in the world.
Not
Not
for your
for
wife.
money.
What about your wife and kids? Wife and kids, you
That's
do it?
different.
Yeah.
but
Not for the money?
Not for money. No, I don't.
I want to do Neuralink. Yo, I'm not doing no Neuralink. All the money in the world for them to put some. No.
Nope.
Let's see them hook up somebody else and stuff, whatever. And we'll see, come back in 10 years and see how they're doing. Because a lot of times when we're playing God, God's going to serve us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We are here.
We're here. We are
We
here.
finally made it to the end.
So is it okay if I have a question
Sure.
for you? Or line up
Drop
any
the
lines?
lines.
for sure.
Okay, the question for you is: how do you think the Black community could make more millionaires? The simplest way.
The simplest way
The Black community could just make more millionaires in the community.
Are you and is this anywhere a Black community resides, or is it
Yeah.
just with here in Canada?
Within Canada or North America,
Okay,
or
so-
any,
If I'm to think North America, I would say I'm looking for the Black churches to get together, and a part of the collection, what they take, as far as looking care of their congregation and their own churches, they somehow create some sort of national fund. There's some sort of bank where now Black people can have access to like loans or grants or whatever, something to start off. I think if we can set up a system, you know what I mean? Because
So is it
These churches-
or banks?
no, these churches,
Churches?
the Black
Okay.
Black
No
churches.
churches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe they come together and create a bank.
Because I was about to say a bank.
Yeah,
A
maybe they come
bank.
together and create a bank,
You
but
know-
some sort of financial institution based on based upon the money that they are collecting from Black people.
yeah, that's the ideal that all the churches are actually really churches and not just people trying to make a little money. But it's a funny thing you said that, because I saw somebody talking about if the churches was about to take out life insurance policies and all their members based on their tithes. So basically, if somebody was tithing every month, say $100 or $200, and they took out life insurance policies for half of that tithe on that individual and just kept on, paying their life insurance policy, when that person passed away, right? If say 5% of that policy went back to the church to continue to do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you build, and that's how you create your bank. You create wealth not only in those people's families from making sure they have life insurance policies,
Right.
right? The
Right.
funerals are covered. There's money left for the families, and then in turn, that money goes back to, and they continue the cycle. Even if there's a whole life policy, because if you do a whole life policy with those people, then there's actually banking money they can borrow against to do stuff. If the churches were set up that way in order to teach people that kind of financial responsibility, or put that money back into the people, it'd be crazy that you brought that up. It's funny, I saw that on IG the other day. So what about you?
Banks.
Banks?
More black banks.
So-
Because I look at it stuff as where if we take whatever millionaires we have now, so let's say if we're talking about, let's say North America, we have set millionaires and stuff who, like, let's say they have 10 mil plus and stuff in their bank, or they just probably just donate, I want to say, to, let's say, building black businesses or something like that. We'll just call it that for to say. And they're just saying, like, all right, we take a donation from this person, this person, this person, this person. We have capital now. Now, when we come to somebody asking for a business loan or something like that along those lines,
Right.
they were like, we'll give you this loan. And if everything and stuff is successful, an interest and stuff amount will be to, like, kind of putting back into this pot. And then this is the pot that keeps rotating over and over for other people to get ready to take out loans and stuff for their businesses. So if the business does go under, at least there was at least a little percentage going back to say, all right, your business didn't work out too well. However, if you're ready to come to the plate and stuff, whatever,
Yeah.
there's no money. It's not, the pot
It's
is
not
empty.
depleted. Yeah.
To me, it's even easier than that. Remember what they did, people did with Gain stock and pushing the stock all the way up. A community of people got together and said, you know what? We're going to either short this stock or make the stock go straight up, and we're going to make a ton of money, stuff. It's very simple. How many friends would you say that I wouldn't even say close friends. How many acquaintances would you say that you have? Just total acquaintance.
We'll say 100.
That's it?
We'll just say 100. Yeah.
100, and you?
Yeah, I'd say about.
No, I didn't say friends. I said acquaintances.
Yeah,
but
but
acquaintance.
Because you even look on your, like, for instance, I think I have thousands, right? Acquaintances, because I was a promoter and I was involved in all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if 5,000 people got together and said, you know what, instead of me buying a drink at the bar this week, I'm going to buy a copy of Bree's book, right? At $15 a pop, right?
Mm.
And then another 5,000 people that maybe did that. Then next week, you know what? We're going to take another $15 and we're going to say, you know what? We're going to donate it to Podical Sons. We're going to take another $15 here. I'm talking about community, and we're going to
Right.
put it in this black business. And then we're going to, that black business. Every single business would start doing well, and it would give us the opportunity to hire. You know how many people you guys could hire a part of your podcast, go out there, have people out there interviewing, if the community came together and said, you know what, we're all going to send $10 to the Podical Sons this week. You know what I mean? I think our community, if we work together and we had that mindset and saying, you know what, we're all going to support this book this week, next week we're going to sort, and it wouldn't take, but what we'll do, we'll get together and we'll see a flood victim in Israel or something happened in Israel. We're all going to take $100 and donate it to Israel, or donate it to Ukraine, or donate it somewhere else, but never amongst ourselves, the people that we know. You know how many messages I got that I'm proud of you when they see my books go out?
Yeah.
And ask me how many of my friends have a copy of my books.
Usual.
You understand what I'm saying?
Usual.
Yeah.
Everybody will say I'm proud of you, or how many of them have even reshared it. I mean, some close people have bought, and yesterday one of my boys, Andy, when we went out to Steve's birthday,
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I was in my car, and he announced, "Hey, my boy just put out a new book. I want you guys to support him." Next thing I'm in my car, I get a call. Yo, bring some books out of your car and bring it into, and that's why you saw my books inside of the event, right?
Right.
So you got people like that who will support you, or you guys who are on me to come and do this podcast forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To support me. You know what I mean? But then you got those people say, hey, good job. And, they'll be out there at the bar spending hundreds of dollars, and they look at you every time and say, I'm so proud of you. I wouldn't spend a dime on the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
We've been
the
there,
thing.
done that.
That's
Been
the
there,
thing
done
in our
that.
community, right? And I'm thinking that if our community, it's almost like a partner thing. Except in a partner, you know what I mean? If you have a business and everybody just said, you know what, this week we're going to support that business over there. Because when that business grows, that business is going to return, invest in that.
Right.
And but that's
And
what,
invest
but
in
this is
that.
what I was saying.
Yeah,
Stuff
just like
pertaining
you
to
were
the
saying.
millionaires, to the millionaires who are like in the percentile where their net worth or annual income and stuff is like 10 mil. $5,000 is a drop in the bucket for them.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying, to the person and stuff, whatever, who only has maybe 100K, 5,000 may be too far for them.
Right.
To even ask them probably for 1,000 and stuff, it might be like pulling teeth. For
Right.
certain people and stuff, $10 is a lot to
Right.
donate, and they probably burnt the $10 somewhere else.
Well, I'm thinking
To a cause.
But believe it or not, that $10 is like people are out there spending it on junk food, spending on this.
But you have to
and that,
convince them to say, not spend it on junk food
or
but to
whatever,
finish on
and
you.
just doing something. It's not, but I'm just saying that if we had the community mindset, we were taught, like for instance, the Jewish people are taught that no matter how expensive it is, spend in the Jewish community. That's how they're taught, right? They're raised like that. South Asians tend to spend in their own community.
But it's the culture.
Chinese, right? It's that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We have to create a new culture amongst ourselves somehow, and keep on, like podcasts and stuff, have to keep on pushing that culture and get people in that culture to support one another. Think about it. Just even the ability to be able to pay this house off where you guys are doing your studio out of, right? And now you're freed up, not having to worry about your mortgage, that you can really go and do what you want to do with this podcast. You could go to Ghana, you could go to Nigeria and grow this thing and get sponsors and whatever, and reinvest in somebody else coming up.
Oh, we know that.
Yeah.
We know that. But
Exactly.
that's the thing.
And
Who's
hire-
throwing up the capital?
Right, but that's
And
what
no one's putting into the
but what
capital
I'm trying
because
to
of the
say,
community.
Yeah, and then what I'm trying to say is the capital you don't even need, you just need basically it's almost like a GoFundMe, right? Except people are getting something from your business, right? So it's either they're paying the Podical Sons as an advertiser. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I
Which
mean?
they do.
Right. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say, right? So this is what I'm trying to say. You know what? This week, Podical Sons doing something great. Those are my boys. So you know what? I have a business or a product or something. I'm going to advertise. Or you know what? I know a young kid that has a product that needs advertising. So I'm going to spend that advertising on the Podical Son.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And and even talking about that, I'm going to see what I can do for you guys too with some of my clients. So,
Well, we appreciate
and I think that
appreciate
we need, but I'm saying that's what we need to come together and do, right? Where, one hand scratches the other. My clients can benefit from it, and you guys can benefit from it as well too. And I think that
always been a thing across the board here.
right.
Yeah.
And
Always.
this is exactly what we need to do as a community in order to build our community. And the great thing is that we still do have allies who will also help us do that. We can't depend on it, but there are allies who will also
help us, right?
You know what I mean?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Because
so-
we've mentioned 1,000 times on this podcast, the NAACP was created with 10 people and 2 were black.
Right.
Just 2. W.E.B. Du Bois and
Right.
Ida B. Wells. They were
Right.
the only black people in that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The rest were all white.
Right.
So allies and stuff is always needed. So it's not something about that you forget the allies and stuff because they may not look or move the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they have the same vision, or like we were saying earlier, they can see your vision, they will push it.
Right. Definitely, man.
All right.
Yo,
Hit 'em.
tell the people where to get your goods, man.
So my books are available on Amazon, all forms of Amazon, but it's also available on I Like Being Me books.ca, or is it .com? One of those two, right?
We'll put the proper
We'll put
spelling
it up
description.
there, yeah,
in the
up
description.
right? But you can get them. Sometimes I appear at different shows and stuff, and I have some on hand as well. And I'm sure contact the Podical Sons if you want some books. They'll make some
For
money
sure.
from it as well too.
100%.
We'll make sure you get them books.
Yeah, if you get some books through the Podical Son, part of it will go towards their podcast.
See, you're helping out everybody now.
That's
You're helping
right.
out this is how we doing. This is
But
we're
more
setting the
importantly,
example.
you're helping out yourself and somebody. Even if you don't buy the book for yourself, buy it for somebody that you know. And believe me,
Well
they'll
said.
thank you for it.
Nice.
Not just because I wrote it, but believe me, all my books, even the children's books, have healing in there for everybody.
Yeah. And don't be fooled, man. It's just like just listening to am going through some of the stories in the books, yeah, they may be children's books, but it applies to real life for all ages, for sure.
Right.
All right.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for
it was a
coming
great
through,
day.
man.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you
glad
for
that I
coming
came through, man.
We're glad. All right, we're gonna hit them with a Soul Say the Sons this week, Smooth, and we're sending people on the way with a weekly motivation.
Sounds good.
Soul Say the Sons this week says you should always make plans for the future, but in pencil.
So says the sons. Go ahead.
I like that.
Yeah, because I
like
feel like
that.
a lot of times and stuff, like we were saying, especially pertaining to like faith and religion and everything, we don't have the final say and stuff on what our plans may be.
Right.
Some things will come up and change and stuff, whatever. Your intention is there for the plans.
Yeah.
So just don't make it seem like this is the end all to be all for just this one plan.
Right.
Things might
It's
happen.
funny that you say that. And back in high school and stuff, if anybody thought who was going to be married first, they thought it would have been me.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
look
know
at
what I mean?
that.
It's so funny. You know how that
100%.
goes, right?
So
I'm telling
say
you,
the
so
Sons,
say
man.
the Sons. So you just don't know.
Bree, thank you for coming through. Thank you for
coming
blessing
through.
us and stuff. And thank you for letting the people know that you are here. You are a great author doing your ones and twos. And please, thank you for helping the Black men grow.
Yeah,
Can't
and
wait for the sequel for this.
I was
next book.
about to say, if when the next one drops, you're more than welcome to come back and promote it.
Yep, and you guys will definitely be part of the next one.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All
Sounds
righty.
good.
All right.
Once
Great.
again, folks, thank you for listening to the Podical Sons. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, all the above. You can see these faces again every Tuesday and hear these voices every Tuesday. And thank you for listening to the Podical Sons. Remember, the difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has its limits. Peace and love, y'all.
The Podical Sons with Not Your Average Joseph and Sofa King Marvelous.